want to try and get to heaven if possible. I'm hearing I'm not doing well.
Hello.
I'm a double.
All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian with you guys. Huge day. So first of all, we had a vote in the House Armed Services Committee to basically merge our military with Israel's. We'll tell you how that turned out. Oh boy. But that story is amazing. The Republicans and the Democrats' actions and reactions there is
trash, as my dad would say, trash.
Yeah, they are trash. The all of Congress. Okay, so Rashida Tlaib tries to check Israel in Lebanon, or our support of Israel in Lebanon. We're gonna tell you in a minute how that turned out. Is Donald Trump dumping JD Vance? There's tons of stories to get to. So we're gonna get started right now.
Hezbollah is a terrorist organization from the gentlelady from Michigan, and its members are butchers that you like to hang out with to a certain extent. No nation can be fully sovereign when an armed group operates outside the authority of its elected. Oh, I'm sorry. Are we getting a little emotional? I certainly believe you advocate for them, yes. You advocate for terrorists on a daily basis.
The House will be in order.
You advocate for a terrorist regime every single day from the Jenny lady from Michigan.
The House will be in order.
That was Representative Max Miller calling Rashida Tlaib a terrorist. She objected. She was introducing a bill that would actually say that we should not support Israel's invasion of Lebanon. That's why she's getting such huge blowback. Now, what we're gonna tell you in this story is, which side did the Democrats take? Did they take Rashida Tlaib's side? Or did they take the Republican and Israeli side? I know you're on the edge of your seat, and then I'll tell you how I think I would have reacted in that same circumstance, which is very different than how Rashida Tlaib reacted. Anna, tell us all about it.
Well, as we've been talking about on this show, Congress has tried and failed multiple times to pass war powers resolutions in regard to reining in the executive branch and the Trump administration specifically in regard to the war against Iran. Yesterday, for the first time, that resolution passed, but it was specifically in regard to the war against Iran. Now, what Rashida Tlaib is trying to do is pass a war powers resolution in regard to what is going down in Lebanon. And what she wants to do is essentially prevent the United States from offering military aid or any type of support to the IDF as they carry out the complete destruction of villages and land annexation in southern Lebanon under the guise of fighting Hezbollah. And by the way, I should note that Israel has also attacked Lebanon north of the Litani River. So it isn't just southern Lebanon that is carrying the brunt or bearing the brunt of Israel's aggression. And in this case, Rashida Tlaib is saying we as Congress should rein the executive branch in. That is our purpose in the system of checks and balances. In fact, here's Tlaib explaining how the US is complicit in Israel's war crimes in Lebanon.
On March 12th, Israeli media reported that President Trump approved, quote, approved the ground incursion by Israel into Lebanon, quote, also authorizing expanding if necessary. Also on April 8th, Axios reporter said live on a mainstream media, quote, without the green light of Donald Trump, you wouldn't have seen Israel go ahead with this very massive strikes in Lebanon. Literally strikes that killed that day 250 people. On May 6th, Israel saw and was granted Trump's, quote, green light for its May 6th strike on Beirut, Mr. Speaker, coordinated with the United States in advance, according to Israeli officials. Not us, but the Israeli officials are telling us that the Trump administration is helping. There's unprecedented public record of direct and overt U.S. command and coordination over Israeli hostilities in Lebanon goes alongside deep U.S.-Israeli operation integration, which American people don't want. Congress must reassert its authority and cut off U.S. support for this cruelty and this destruction.
So that's incredibly straightforward, and we are supposed to believe that when it comes to our political duopoly that we live under, right, Democrat versus Republican, well, since this is a Democrat proposing it and she's rebuking President Trump in aiding and abetting Israel's war crimes, well, Democrats are gonna side with Rashida Tlaib and voting in favor of this war powers resolution.
Obviously.
Right?
Right.
But that's not what happened.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh. That is so strange. Democrats betraying their own and 80% of their voters to vote with Israel. That gave them, well, I don't know how much exactly went to the Democrats in this last cycle, but tens of millions of dollars.
Yes, absolutely.
That's weird. After being legally bribed by the supporters of a foreign government,
right,
they chose the foreign government over American voters. That's got to be a first, Anna.
But you have to look, Cenk. This is really important. In fact, this is the most important thing that all of us must understand and take to heart. What Cenk just said is anti-Semitic. Okay? Because you should never allude to the reality that Israel and its lobby controls members of our government, okay? So in this case, this story, when it first broke, Axios had reported that there were a few wishy-washy Democrats, right? Democrats who said they were on the fence. That included Representatives Greg Meeks of New York, noted, Adam Smith of Washington, he's gonna make another appearance on the show today, noted, and Jim Himes, who's a Democrat from Connecticut. They're like, yeah, we don't know. We don't know if we want to rein in the Trump administration's support of Israel's war crimes in southern Lebanon. And then there are the Democrats who flat out said that they are against Rashida Tlaib's resolution. But what's really interesting here, or War Powers Act resolution, what's really interesting here though is in the Axios piece, none of them were willing to go on the record with their names. They spoke to Axios anonymously. I wonder why they did that. Maybe it's because they realized that the vast majority of Democratic voters, people they need to get reelected, are against providing military aid and support to Israel as it continues to conduct atrocities in not just southern Lebanon, but in multiple countries. Multiple neighbors of theirs have been struck by Israel. So anyway, let's get to what they had to say, these Democrats who wouldn't go on the record with their names. One anonymous senior House Democrat said, people are not happy that Tlaib is making people take this vote.
Oh, I love that quote. I'm gonna come back to it.
By the way, Congresswoman Tlaib, thank you for doing this. I support it 100%. She has the ability to force a vote on a war powers resolution, and I'm glad that she did it. See, when you take action, you get positive reinforcement, you get kudos. Action is what we care about, not small talk, BS promises that never come to fruition. House Democrats are caught between their wariness about being seen as condoning Israel's actions and the fact that there is no indication the US is planning imminent large-scale ground operations in Lebanon. It doesn't matter, we're supplying the weaponry. Okay, we have blood on our hands, we are paying for it and we're supplying the weaponry. There are also concerns among Democratic leadership that the resolution could hamper the US's current efforts to combat Hezbollah. Lawmakers, aides, and other sources familiar with the internal discussions told Axios, Israel should stop occupying southern Lebanon, they should pull out, they should sign a ceasefire deal, and it'll be done. But Israel doesn't want to do that. They want to continue occupying southern Lebanon. Cenk, back to you.
Okay, so now let's tackle these Democrats, and then I'll tell you how I would have handled it. So that Axios article that Anna's referring to, it has a headline that's vague. This is like Democrats livid with what's happening with Rashida Tlaib's resolution. So you look at it and you could think like Democrats livid with the Republicans for how they're reacting to it, or Democrats livid with Rashida Tlaib for actually being a Democrat. And you know how it's gonna go, right? I knew how it was gonna go, and then I started reading the article, and they're like, how dare she try to represent 80% of Democratic voters?
Yep.
We are livid with her. And why are they livid with her? Because she's going to expose them as frauds.
They got caught.
So why is this different than the Iran war resolution? So there's a couple of reasons why. Number one, the Iran war is way too big and spectacular for the Democrats to say that they're in favor of it. So they have to pretend to be against it. And if the Republicans need any votes, they'll get just enough votes from the Democrats to continue the war. So that's how this game is played. But even so, there are even some Democrats who support Israel who think this isn't helping Israel. This is a wrong strategy for Israel. So it's not like they care about America. They're just concerned that this war might hurt their beloved Israel. Lebanon, on the other hand, they all love that Israel is invading Lebanon and is going to take southern Lebanon because they're all paid by the Israeli lobby.
Right.
So when it comes to Lebanon, they're like, how dare you, Rashida Tlaib? That is Israel's right to take that land, right? And this Palestinian cares about the Lebanese. And of course, America is wasting all of our money on these wars. So,
and by the way, like they don't say it that way. They use that false argument of, well, they have the right to defend themselves. They're fighting Hezbollah. By the way, Rashida Tlaib's resolution, like this, all it would do is it would prevent US funding and military support for what Israel's doing in southern Lebanon. So basically what these Democrats are saying, Cenk, along with Republicans, of course, is no. Israel is entitled to the United States paying for it. Entitled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they say things like, this is really interesting. The quote that Anna read you, they said, well, I mean, we don't have any ground operations in Lebanon. See, that's a calculated effort to deceive. Why? Because we're not talking about ground troops. We're talking about paying for a lot of their intelligence, coordinating with their intelligence, and paying for a lot of the military that they use to invade Lebanon.
Right.
So when a Democrat puts that message out, they think, oh, I'll trick my voters. I'll lie to them and pretend this is about ground troops when the resolution has nothing to do with ground troops. Now, why do they have to deceive you and figure out how to best deceive you? Because they actually work for Israel and not you. So this is obvious to anyone with a brain because they got paid by the Israeli lobby millions of dollars for all of them to vote with Israel. Now, we get to leadership. Because now let's be fair, guys. Hakeem Jeffries and I think well, let's stick with Hakeem. But the rest of the Democratic leadership was also part of this message. They put out a message. They were, in the Axios article, they're deliberating. What do we do? And I'm like, that's so funny. Come on, we all know what you're gonna do.
They think we're stupid.
Yeah. So then they finally decided which way they were gonna go. I don't know if they got extra checks before the decision. So anyways, they say, we stand with the Lebanese people, the government of Lebanon, and the Lebanese armed forces in their efforts to live peacefully. Oh my God, wait, they might have gone with Rashida Tlaib. They're saying, yes, we need Lebanon to be safe. Let me read you the rest of it. Stand with the Lebanese armed forces in their efforts to live peacefully and defeat Hezbollah, a violent terrorist organization that is a sworn enemy of the United States.
Yeah.
Hezbollah's not invading Lebanon. Israel's invading Lebanon. In fact, there's, we gotta watch out for Hezbollah attacking Israel. Where is Hezbollah mainly attacking Israel? In southern Lebanon, where Israel has invaded their land. So, but look at these liars. Since they know you're against Israel, they're voters. They're like, well, we think our voters are idiots and we know the media will help us deceive people. So we'll pretend that Hezbollah's invading itself?
Well, I want to just note, you are correct that most of the strikes are being carried out in Lebanon, where currently IDF forces are occupying territory there. Hezbollah has begun taking some action, taking strikes basically in northern Israel in retaliation of what the IDF is doing. I mean, this is war. This is what you can expect when you have occupying forces who refuse to leave. And by the way, there was a ceasefire offered to Hezbollah today, and they rejected it. You want to know why? Because the ceasefire stipulated that the IDF would not pull out of southern Lebanon. They would continue occupying the territory. Well, that's the whole purpose of the war to begin with. And look, here's the other thing. Netanyahu says, we're not gonna stop until Hezbollah is disarmed. Mind you, Hezbollah is really the only resistance preventing Israel from taking over the entirety of Lebanon. But he wants Hezbollah disarmed, But on top of that, he wants Lebanon entirely demilitarized.
He said that today.
He did say that today. So I just want to ask people who are a little more, let's say, generous to the Israeli perspective. I want to ask you something. How would you feel about a neighbor, an antagonistic neighbor, telling us that we must demilitarize our country? We must get rid of our military, meaning our ability to defend ourselves and our own sovereignty, in order to prevent them from continuously attacking us and trying to take over our land. How would you respond to that?
Yeah, so I want to build on that because, if after Germany invaded Poland, they said, all right, well, let's just do a ceasefire and we keep Poland. People would be like, no, you don't keep Poland. But what if after they invaded and took France, they're like, okay, ceasefire. Now we take Poland, Belgium, and France. No, what? Ceasefire, right? Okay, now Israel attacks Lebanon and Hezbollah's inside Lebanon. So has Hezbollah done some totally ineffective drone strikes in northern Israel? Yes, okay. So now they say, well, do you see that? No, I don't see that. To Anna's point, if Russia invades America, does Russia have a right to say, how dare you attack Russia back? Bro, you attacked us first.
100%, exactly.
Of course I have a right to counterattack you. But look at all the deception in American media and in American government. They make it seem like Hezbollah has no right to defend itself on its own land, and that they're terrorists for defending their actual homes, the homes they live in, and that they're terrorists for counterattacking Israel after their invasion of their country. I mean, you see it, guys? Do you see it? Like, they've captured, Israeli lobby has captured the entire power structure of Washington, both the politicians and the media. So they tell us these fables, and they're literally actively trying to brainwash us into supporting this fascist imperial empire in the middle of the Middle East.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, let me just note one other thing. This is a perfect story. It encapsulates an argument that I've been trying to make, not just on this show, but on other shows over and over again. And I want people to really understand what I'm trying to get at, because people think it's you shedding your political values in order to make allies with people that you might find problematic. The bipartisan, or I should say partisan lines are being crossed, because I think ordinary Americans are waking up to the robbery we're experiencing right now in our country, and the fact that we do not live in a sovereign country, and it's about to get even less sovereign with the integration of the IDF into our own military. And so Democratic voters, Republican voters are seeing what's going on. They're enraged, they want it to stop. But then you look up, you look at Congress, and both parties are in cahoots in basically aiding and abetting the robbery.
100%. This is not the only thing that happened today. As we're going to tell you a little bit later in the show, they decided to merge our military with Israel, and the Democrats enthusiastically joined it.
Yes.
So we'll get to that in a second. Last two quotes from this story. The Democratic leadership continues, and they're so funny the way they're like this, but then that. They say, we also do not support any effort by the Trump administration to entangle the United States in a war in Lebanon or other parts of the Middle East. Well, that makes it sound like they're going to vote with Rashida Tlaib's resolution, which is HCON Resolution 84. So they conclude by saying, accordingly, we will vote no on HCON Res 84.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. All right, now all the way back to Max Miller. So he basically says that Rashida Tlaib's working with terrorists. She objects. There's like a 45-minute melee in Congress, and eventually they strike it from the record. I think it's always hilarious when they strike things from the record. We already know he said it, it's on tape.
Yeah.
Okay, I would have done something unusual if I was in Congress. I wouldn't have asked for it to be stricken from the record. I'm like, I'm totally fine with that, and I'm not offended by it. So I just give me my turn. Oh, okay. So this is what I think of Representative Max Miller. I think he's a terrorist sympathizer. The government of Israel has killed 100 times the civilians that Hamas or Hezbollah has, and they have a worse civilian kill ratio. And by any definition of terrorism, the government of Israel are terrorists. And Max Miller wants to send your money, your hard-earned money that you work so hard for, that you need for your rent or mortgage, over to a bunch of terrorists to murder their neighbors and take their land.
Yep.
So you want to start calling people terrorists? No problem. I'll start with Max Miller. and I've got about 525 out of 535 to get to before we're done. I don't need anything stricken from the record.
Yeah, I do like that approach a lot more, definitely. But again, credit to Rashida Tlaib for forcing this vote, because there's nothing that Democrats hate more than being exposed, and she exposed them. We gotta take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the dismantling of the meaning of ceasefires, according to Donald Trump. This is such an incredible story. We are still at war, and it appears that Trump intends to just continue this weird war purgatory we're experiencing indefinitely. We'll be right back.
All right, let's go to our members on TYT.com. Nerd Ferguson says, Tlaib supports terrorists. I thought she was against the Israeli government. You took the words right out of my mouth. I love doing that on social media. Whenever Mark Levin's like, yeah, I'm a terrorist. And I'm like, no, I don't support Israel. I'm good. And that drives me crazy. Deport! Who are we deporting, fat ass? The minute we get a chance to find out who the infiltrators are. Okay, you keep saying deport. Let's find out who gets deported. Anyways, there are things called assets and agents. There are legal definitions to those when you work with a foreign government. If you do a real investigation, my guess is we're gonna find tons, thousands of Israeli assets inside Washington. If we ever have an honest government, what happens with them is a great question. Michael Napier says, welcome to the most serious risks to public safety with Anna and Cenk. Yeah, you better watch out, man. We are a danger to the public order. And literally adjudicated as such in Great Britain. Adjudicated in a sense. Bloated Ego says, I know when I took English in school, it was a long time ago, but I thought ceasefire still meant ceasefire. When did the definition change, with Israel or the United States? As you're gonna see in the Trump quote in a minute, Israel changed the definition. Trump's like, that's what it says. Okay, so I'll read these blind YouTube members. Kamala ran around for Scott Auger, around for 2 months leading up to the election with a Republican to cool off the Democratic base enough for all this BS. Yeah, she went around with Liz Cheney the whole time like, I'm such a guy, love the warmonger Republicans. Great job on that dumbass strategy. Randy Fine Ate My Handle says, at this point, the US political system is a giant money laundromat. That is 100% right. Bog says, I notched the Dems been awfully quiet. I noticed the Dems have been awfully quiet since Iran started. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys, but also Purple Dove 73. Thanks for joining by hitting that beautiful join button below the YouTube video. But all these fine folks, Capo One, Sam CH33, and Spud, either made donations or joined through TYT.com/join. And guys, as I've been telling you, we are besieged. So if you're ever going to give a donation or join, this would be the time. Because if you think Israel First isn't attacking us behind the scenes, you don't know Israel First. They announced their intentions to destroy everything we touch because they're terrorists. But anyways, okay, so Noble Mobile, now they're going crazy. Their new offer is bananas. So
they're giving out bananas?
Well, you can buy all the bananas you want with this because new customers now get 3 months free. No tricks, no catch. The whole summer is totally free. Noble Mobile actually pays you to use your phone less. The less data you use, the more cash back you get. It's on T-Mobile's 5G network. And guys, they're also doing something extra level of crazy. So if you didn't join, if you joined earlier, they're gonna let you have this deal as well. And you're gonna accumulate money back from the data you don't use in the free months. So like, this is paying you in 3 different ways. You gotta jump on this before this deal is over. TYT.com/switch, TYT.com/switch. Get much better cell phone service for much less. All right, let's go to the next story.
Iranian drones and missiles rained down on the Gulf this week, and the US attacked Iranian missile sites in some of the heaviest fighting since the ceasefire began in April. Iran targeted US bases in Kuwait and Bahrain and caused heavy damage at Kuwait's international airport, where one civilian was killed and dozens were injured, according to Kuwait's official news agency. So far, the US says the ceasefire remains in place, but the latest episode shows how quickly fighting can escalate and how far the two sides are from a deal.
So are we in a ceasefire or aren't we? Well, wait till you get a load of Donald Trump's hilarious answer. He's just going to change the definition of ceasefire. So you'll see that in a second. And then you'll see the reactions of many, including Democrats, some of whom apparently want to stay in the war longer. So Anna, tell us about it.
So, something that you pointed out earlier, Cenk, is this is kind of more of the Israelification of the United States and how we carry out our foreign policy. Because according to an exclusive report in the Wall Street Journal, President Donald Trump is less interested in sparking or reigniting an all-out war with Iran. He just wants to do, moderate strikes, moderate bombing. But it's still a ceasefire. It's just that you fire sometimes under this ceasefire. Maybe we should rename it to sometimes fire instead of ceasefire. But anyway, so as the Wall Street Journal reports, the president's reluctance to reignite the war suggests he might be willing to withstand smaller flare-ups for weeks or even months to avoid a broader conflict in the Middle East. Now, mind you, that is the weird war purgatory that we find ourselves in right now, which isn't really conducive to a healthy global economy and certainly not a healthy US economy. The war has caused a lot of damage to our economy already, and there are already all sorts of analyses out in regard to how low we are when it comes to our oil reserves. And once we run out of those oil reserves in late summer, we're gonna be in a lot of trouble. Believe it or not, the extremely high gas prices you're experiencing right now are not as bad as they could be, because once we run out of those reserves, it's gonna be a lot worse. We've been tapping into our reserves.
Yes, and this whole moderate ceasefire reminds me of a friend of mine who once, I mean, this is a hilarious thing, but back in the day in Craigslist, said, is anybody interested in light spanking? So this is just a light spanking. It doesn't really count. And by the way, that worked.
That's hilarious.
Okay, so it turns out we might stay in this purgatory all the way to Labor Day.
Disaster.
What happened to, we'll be done in 3 to 4 weeks. I know, it was gonna be easy.
So let me give you some more, because Trump was asked, like, what's the situation with the ceasefire? And look, I wanna be clear about one other thing. The last 48 hours have been relatively calm, and that is a good sign. It means that Trump really doesn't have an appetite to go back into an all-out war with Iran. That's a good piece of information. However, this whole thing where you're just in that war purgatory, again, there are a lot of downsides to it. And so Trump was asked, like, what's going on with this ceasefire? Is this really a ceasefire? Watch how he responded to that.
How do you define ceasefire?
Pretty much the way it is. It's a different part of the world. I'd say in that part of the world, ceasefire is when you're shooting in a more moderate manner.
In that part of the world, you continue in a more moderate manner.
Yeah,
that's not a ceasefire.
Cease means stop. I don't know if Donald Trump knows that. He once claimed to invent the word fake.
There's the word ceasefire. No one had ever heard that word before. I came up with it. I came up with the word ceasefire.
And what it means is you do moderate bombing. No, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't. Okay. It means light spanking. No, it really doesn't.
Yeah, so Secretary of State Marco Rubio also dodged accountability for Trump's disastrous war by framing the US's side of the violence that erupted last week as retaliatory. It wasn't retaliatory. We were shooting at or striking vessels leaving Iranian ports, and Iran finally had enough of it, so they responded. In fact, Iran's strikes against the US, or I should say, against Gulf countries hosting US military bases was retaliatory. But here's what Marco Rubio said, quote, "They're happening in response to an Iranian action. If they don't shoot at those ships, we don't shoot, but we have to respond. You guys are the ones shooting at their ships." And they're responding to that. But of course, Rubio knows that. He's just lying to the public, and he thinks that we're all stupid and don't know what's going on at all. And go ahead, Cenk.
Yeah, you see, the problem with working for Donald Trump is he has verbal diarrhea. So even if you guys came up with a clever talking point, you're all gonna stick with it, Trump's not going to, because he can't help himself. So the Wall Street Journal was actually had a decent article here. Also quoted Trump right afterwards. And Trump says, it takes two to tango. We hit them very hard on something else, and so they were responding. Well, thank you for the admission, we appreciate it. He just said it.
Yeah, no, I do appreciate it, right? And I love the after the fact, like cleanup efforts by various members of Trump's cabinet. But sometimes Trump just says the truth, and in this case, he was definitely telling the truth. So aides within the White House claimed that Trump would like Iran to agree not to develop nuclear weapons diplomatically. So here's the reality of the situation. There are two things holding us back, or the Trump administration back, from ending the war against Iran. Number one, and you guys all know this, is Israel, because Iran says if Israel's offensive against Lebanon doesn't end, then we're not agreeing to a ceasefire. That's a big part of the ceasefire agreement. That's a big part of the peace proposal that we're offering. And if we're not gonna end the war in Lebanon, then no, we're not gonna agree to a peace deal. So there's the Israel component of that. Israel refuses to stop their offensive in southern Lebanon. Then there's Trump needing a win. Because in order for Trump to announce that we're ending the war, he wants to say that he got something out of it, because this war has been so disastrous for the United States and the American people. So that's why his aides are basically telling the press, if they could just agree diplomatically to not developing nuclear weapons or enriching uranium. But here's the thing, Iran knows that right now they have the upper hand. They know that the United States doesn't have a military option to reopen the Strait of Hormuz or to spur regime change in Iran. And so they did agree to stopping the enrichment of uranium a few days prior to the war. Maybe Trump should have taken that offer, but he didn't.
Yeah, so now, I said it's a good article by the Wall Street Journal. I don't know if they did this by accident, but let me just give them the credit, because they explained that Iran has kind of already agreed to let the enriched uranium out of the country. They've kind of agreed to that several times, as we've told you here, right? And then they add, these wouldn't be hard commitments, meaning like getting to peace is actually relatively easy, because both sides kind of already have what they want. We want to get rid of the highly enriched uranium. Iran's already agreed. We want to open up the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's already agreed. They want the blockade lifted and for our military to leave and the war to stop. And we've already said we want that, right? So now, of course, they can't get into like they'd be fired instantly if they told you the actual truth as to why we can't get out of the war. It's because of Israel, because we literally have everything we want, but we're waiting for orders from Israel. Can we pretty please leave your war?
But the one other thing that Trump needs to let go if he wants the war to end, okay? And this isn't a perfect world where Israel isn't a factor in this equation. What a dream world, but we don't live in that world. But let's say we did. The one other thing is Trump refuses to lift sanctions against Iran, and he also refuses to unfreeze their assets. And as long as he does that, Iran is gonna continue controlling the Strait of Hormuz, because okay, you're gonna try to squeeze us economically that way, then we're gonna go ahead and continue collecting $2 million tolls from every vessel that transits through the strait.
See, Anna, I don't even think that's real, because Trump has said in his Truth Social posts, etc., there'll be no cash in the deal, and he capitalizes cash, because he knows that if we lift sanctions, that's not cash, right? We're not giving them money. If we unfreeze their assets, well, it was their assets in the first place, so it's not cash, right? So that to me signaled that he's already okay with doing some of that, for sure.
Maybe.
I think the real reason isn't because he didn't get what he wanted. We've gotten everything we wanted in that sense. No, it's because Netanyahu won't let him. And every time, I mean, we just saw with our own eyes this week, again, for the 100th time, Trump said, oh, I'm pulling them back from Lebanon and peace is imminent. And then Netanyahu was like, no, it's not. And we're gonna stay in Lebanon. And Trump backed off and we're back into purgatory and an endless ceasefire.
So the only other thing that's worthy of mentioning here is Well, two things actually. I want to go to Jared Moskowitz and how he's been reacting to this war in just a moment. But and he's a Democrat. But before I do want to talk about what happened yesterday with the War Powers Resolution, because for the first time after multiple attempts, the House did in fact pass the War Powers Resolution to rein in the Trump administration as it pertains to the war against Iran. And so a lot of this could, have been avoided if there was a War Powers Resolution before the fact, but that didn't happen. So forcing Trump to bring the subject to the floor or ceasing the war immediately was the subject of the Iran Wars Power Resolution, which again was voted on yesterday. Take a look at how the result of that vote was. So you did luckily have 4 Republicans who are willing to join Democrats in getting this passed. But now those Republicans are unfortunately dealing with Trump's ire because he's absolutely furious by this. But these Republicans, I think, realize that they're experiencing a little bit of they need to engage in a balancing act because they also understand they need to get reelected, and Republican voters who are hit economically as a result of this war might punish them when it comes to their attempts at getting reelected.
Yeah, so it was obviously Massey was one of the 4 votes, but the other 3 were in tough districts where they're really worried about the general election.
Right.
And Trump is deeply unpopular. The Republicans are deeply unpopular. The war is deeply unpopular. So they had to do something. But then, of course, Trump is then going to try to nuke them. And it's just a matter of where they are in their primaries. Do they have a real primary or not? And those are the political calculations they have to make. Remember, almost no politician has any morality. They're just making financial and political calculations for what's best for them and their power and their ego. And that's why you have this dynamic. But at the end of the day, hey, it passed. That's great. So it passed the House. It actually has a decent chance of passing the Senate. Here's the problem and why they don't mind too much letting it pass, because Trump gets to veto it, which is kind of absurd because Congress has the power to declare war. He usurps that power, takes it away from them. Congress says, no, give it back to us. And he's like, now you need 2/3. Why? You never had the power in the first place.
I know, and you're right. Trump is very likely to veto it if you ask me. That's my prediction.
Of course he's going to veto it.
And in his first term, I don't know if you guys remember this, but shockingly, Congress had passed a resolution to end US involvement in the war in Yemen. They passed it, Trump vetoed it. So I think it's going to be a similar situation.
100%. So at the end of the day, the reason why it might pass the Senate is because everybody already knows that Trump's going to veto it. Because if Trump wasn't going to veto it, then all of a sudden some Democrats would be like, AIPAC, you need help? Oh, this is the one time I am going to vote for war. Yes. I am normally against war, but which leads us to Representative Moskowitz.
Yes, okay, so let's put graphic 6 up again, because as you might notice, every single Democrat voted in favor of the Iran War Powers Resolution, meaning Congressman Jared Moskowitz voted in favor of it. But then he immediately runs to CNN and says this.
Now that we're there and we're in this war, we have to get the uranium. We can't just go home after we've lost 13 Americans. We've spent, $25+ billion, and now the Iranians believe they can close the Strait of Hormuz whenever they want and disrupt international trade. We have to get the uranium. That has to be part of the deal. And look, we need our European allies, and we need, our world allies to try to, our Middle East allies to try to force this deal. This wasn't just, the United States and Israel. This was our Gulf allies who wanted to make sure Iran did not get a nuclear weapon, because that would set off a nuclear arms race in the entire Middle East. And so I think it's critical that whatever deal eventually gets done, and I want a deal, I don't want the war to continue, the deal must include getting all of the uranium, the nuclear dust, and the dismantling of the 3 underground facilities.
Okay, so first it was the uranium, then the nuclear. What is nuclear dust? I love how they're just like recycling Trump's stupid terminology that makes no sense. But okay, so no enriched uranium, we gotta get the uranium, Mark Levin type point. We gotta get the nuclear dust, and then we have to dismantle, what did he say? There was a third thing that he said.
The facilities.
The facilities, right, that we bombed, and I thought we destroyed and obliterated, as Trump said multiple times. Like, this is such he's not against ending the war, it's BS.
Yeah, so his voters, we need to stop this war right now. Then he goes on TV, we don't stop the war until we get this. And okay, one part of it, the highly enriched uranium, I think it's BS. I don't think it's relevant at all. They're not anywhere near a weapon, etc. But okay, we said that was our objective. Fine, right? Okay, get that out. But what is this about all of the uranium? Because he knows that Iran will never agree to not doing a nuclear energy program, one that would be verified by international monitors, etc., as they were under the Obama deal. But they're not going to agree to giving up all of their uranium, even the ones that aren't highly enriched and just used for electricity. So that's why Moskowitz puts a poison pill in there on behalf of Israel, so that the war lasts forever until you get regime change or civil war or whatever it is that Israel wants to completely neuter Iran, so that it could, so that Iran can't help the Lebanese defend themselves or the Syrians to defend themselves, so Israel can take more land. Now Moskowitz knows that. He's a giant liar, because that's not the only thing he's lying about. He also said our Gulf allies also wanted this. No, they didn't.
Did they?
They very, very, very clearly said before the war, during the war, we don't want this war. But Moskowitz, it's not like he doesn't know that. He does know that. He's purposely lying to you. Okay, and then the third lie was, if anybody in the Middle East gets a nuclear weapon, then there'll be a nuclear arms race. So that's why we can't allow it. Wait, Israel already has a nuclear weapon. So didn't they start the nuclear arms race?
But it's okay, they get to operate under completely different standards from literally every other country, including our own.
And by the way, any decent news person would have then asked, but what do you mean, Representative Moskowitz, doesn't one country already have a nuclear weapon, Israel? But Jake Tapper also works for Israel, so he's like, I don't know anything. I'm not going to correct any of his lies. I mean, wouldn't you at least ask, wait a minute, didn't you vote to stop the war? Now you're telling me to not stop the war?
Yeah.
But Jake Tapper's like, bravo, how do we do, BB?
That's, true. How am I gonna refute that? It's totally true. Anyway, we gotta take a break. When we come back, I wanna talk about something absolutely devastating that happened in the House Armed Services Committee today. And it does have to do with a story we've been following about integrating Israel's military into our own. So stick around, I'm gonna tell you how the vote on that took place today.
Ceasefires when you're shooting in a more moderate manner.
I'm a very stable genius.
All right, so I'm gonna read these blind folks. Let's go to our members again on TYT.com. Virginia Vaughn 39 says, don't people attacking TYT know that we have an army? Well, my God, don't tell them, because then they'll be like, oh my God, these sound so dangerous. They're a threat to the public. Danger. They criticize Israel. Oh, I do declare. I am a bit of a danger, aren't I? All right, anyways. K-Dragon Battling says, guess what? There's no news on the mainstream network saying that our military is now integrated with Israel. I haven't seen anything anyway, probably because mainstream media doesn't want us to know. Ding, ding, ding,
no,
ding, we have a winner.
They do not want you to know.
There's this outrageous provision that we're about to tell you about in the next segment, and mainstream media's like, well, I don't see it. Or Jay Tapper looks at it and goes, well, obviously Israel should be able to integrate into our military and take trillions of dollars of value. They need it, they're the victims. God, our television is a joke, it's poison. Egypt 5 says, ceasefire now in a period of time where I may attack you while you don't attack me. Yes, that is, if you look it up in an Israeli dictionary, that's what you'll see. Jenks Tricep of Fury says, his light bombing just killed a child. He's disgusting, agreed. Birch Splurt says, next time someone tries to assassinate a decaying pumpkin, they should just call it a friendly hug. Nothing illegal about that. I want the ceasefire, Mar-a-Lago into the ocean. No, don't do any of that. Don't talk about the assassinations. That's terrible. I don't want any violence at all. I know you're joking about it, but still. Dub says, my wife told me she was just moderately banging the mailman. I am reading these blind. Okay.
To be fair, moderate banging is definitely not as exciting.
Yeah, Wang Zhong says, ceasefire or seize fire?
Ceasefires when you're shooting in a more moderate manner.
I'm a very stable genius.
All right, back on TYT. Jen and Anna with you guys. First, no vitriol here. Thank you for the 50 memberships on YouTube. We definitely need it and we appreciate it. You're awesome for doing that. And I wanted to remind you guys, we were kidding around about getting banned in the UK, which we did. And we've got those shirts for you guys at shoptyt.com. I believe the only family to have 2 members ever banned from the United Kingdom. Apparently the most dangerous family in the history of the British Empire. You're looking at it, okay? So banned in the UK, shoptyt.com, check that out. All right, let's go to the next story.
The entire country of Israel has a GDP that is less than a single town in my district. Yet somehow Netanyahu thinks he could tell the American people what we should do. The person who's most upset with him right now is President Donald Trump. And everyone in America, whether you're a Republican, an independent, or a Democrat, says that we need to tell Netanyahu that America calls the shots, not the prime minister of any other country. Mr. Netanyahu actually wrote to a member of Congress to put this Section 224 into the bill.
So there's a Section 224 that Representative Khanna referred to there that basically merges the intelligence and the data and so many of the important parts of our military with Israel's military. It's an outrage. And so what's interesting about this is, how did they vote on his amendment? Did they vote for America or did they vote for Israel? And most especially the Democrats. That is very, very telling. Anna, tell us about it.
Well, the House Armed Services Committee convened today, and the whole point was to go over various amendments to the National Defense Authorization Act. It's the annual must-pass bill that provides and allocates funding to the Pentagon. Now, in the bill is a provision known as Section 224. And what 224 would essentially do is merge the Israeli military with the US military. Certainly there would be more enhanced intelligence cooperation, and it would provide more access to the IDF, to our intelligence, and access to our military infrastructure. In fact, Joe Kent wrote about this in Responsible Statecraft just yesterday, and I interviewed him about it, and he went through why this would be so disastrous. So Ro Khanna, being one of the few members of Congress who's looking out for American sovereignty, decided to offer an amendment that would strip the National Defense Authorization Act of that provision of Section 224. And before I get to the vote, I just want to give you some more information about basically where this idea came from. Turns out it actually came from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. How do we know that? Well, just yesterday, a Republican member of Congress had said, I would like to end military aid to Israel. Instead, I would like to have like an enhanced trade relationship. That representative, let's go to graphic 5 here, was Marlin Stutzman. And he said that we are bound by the shared Western values that built both our nations. As long as those values are under threat, we will defend them side by side. The alliance is entering a new era. My new resolution affirms that the US stands with Israel, not out of obligation, but out of shared strength and shared strategic interest. Israel has come of age where our nations should contribute equally and share results equally, trade over aid. So what he's doing here is he is pitching the idea of merging the militaries together, right? And that would lead to less transparency. It would basically allow Israel to exploit our military for their own purposes. And that is a big problem. And there are also questions about Fourth Amendment violations, since we're talking about them having access to highly classified information, which is an issue here. And turns out that Benjamin Netanyahu wrote a letter to Stutzman congratulating him for this proposal. And I want you to look at this letter. So this is Netanyahu's letter to Stutzman. This is graphic 3, take a look at that. And I'm gonna read the highlighted version. And I wanna give a hat tip to Gen X Girl on X. She also has an incredible Substack where she does great investigative reporting. Please follow her. The highlighted part says the following. And this is again from Netanyahu. I am heartened by your enthusiastic support for our plan to develop a new memorandum of understanding with the United States government that will draw down US financial military assistance over the next decade and replace it with what you refer to as a new framework of joint defense cooperation, co-development, co-production, and mutual investment in areas including advanced missile defense, artificial intelligence, unmanned systems, cybersecurity, and next generation military platforms. So this is a way to trick you. This is a way to respond politically to the growing percentage of Americans who do not want to provide military support to Israel. If we have both militaries basically working together, we have the IDF integrated into the US military, well, then they can use and abuse our Pentagon, our military as much as they want without us even knowing about it. And what we're supposed to believe that Israel's contributing equally to the Pentagon. By the way, does this now make it a little more clear why President Trump wants to increase the budget for the Pentagon to the tune of $1.5 trillion? Please. Okay, so with that all in mind, today the House Armed Services Committee voted on the amendment proposed by Khanna, and guess what? They struck it down, they rejected it. There was only one Democrat who voted in favor of it, and that Democrat happened to be Representative Sarah Jacobs from California.
Yeah, so I'm coming back to Sarah Jacobs because she was great. So let's break this down. First, that Representative Anna was quoting, we were protecting Western values. Really? I thought freedom of speech was a Western value, and I just got banned from the United Kingdom for criticizing Israel.
Western values is a myth when it comes to these people. They don't care about Western values.
So no, they're not. No, again, as always, they're not our ally. They're a foreign government taking advantage of us and actually taking things away from us, including our freedoms and Western values. Freedom of speech is a Western value, and they're like, we don't want you to have it. We don't want you to have it in the UK, and we also don't want you to have it here. If you write an op-ed against Israel, you'll be arrested. If you try to boycott Israel, your livelihood will be ended. What is this? And they're literally taking our freedom away. And by the way, Western values, I thought you guys said you were native to the Middle East. Which one is it? Okay, all right, so now Anna's right. What this is they realized they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar, and they've lost the American people. 60% are already against funding Israel at all, and the number grows every day. That's why the first distraction and diversion tactic was Netanyahu coming out and saying, we don't want any more money, except for the next 10 years.
Yep.
That's just saying, give me 10 more years of money. And of course, since the media works for him, they all wrote, Israel doesn't want any more money. And later, when you say, but no, they do, they want 10 more years of money, that's not asking for money. That's the exact opposite. They're like anti-Semite. Come on, guys, come on. It's so obvious now what's happening. So then the second thing they do is this bill, this section 224. They're like, you know how Israel stole our nuclear secrets? That was Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell's dad. And then they stole our nuclear triggers, and they stole our uranium, and they built weapons of mass destruction with it. So that's a fact. And then, by the way, the media said they're our allies. No, that sounds exactly like an enemy. In fact, they sold some of that information to the Soviets back in the day.
Yeah,
that is literally an enemy. That's an enemy, not an ally. When you steal things from us, by the way, no one has stolen from us more than the Israelis.
So Jonathan Pollard sold our secrets to the Israelis, which is why he ended up getting prosecuted and convicted for being a traitor. And that was when Israel sold some of our secrets to the Soviet Union, which were considered our enemies at the time.
So did Robert Maxwell. And in fact, when people pointed out that Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's co-conspirator, is the daughter of Robert Maxwell, mainstream media said, well, Robert Maxwell worked with the Russians, so this is probably a Russian operation. No, he stole from us, gave the technology to Israel. Israel then sold it to the Soviet Union because they're not our ally. They're a country that is taking advantage of us, and they've done that brilliantly. They don't need the American population. They only need the government. And in America, that's super easy because you can legally bribe the politicians, and they need the media to be their getaway driver. So that's why the media is constantly lying to you about how they're the victims. Okay, so now in this deal, they would integrate so much into our technology. Number one, we'd have trouble extracting them. But number two, that means that the 1.5 trillion we're spending, they get the full advantage of it.
Yes.
Right?
So let me actually read you the excerpts from Joe Kent's piece, because it was excellent and it helped me understand just how bad this is. Now, mind you, Joe Kent isn't just some random person. I mean, he was the head of counterterrorism under Trump, but he resigned due to the illegal war against Iran. And he also served in the military, so he knows what he's talking about here. He writes, the catch is Section 224, cleverly buried deep in the massive National Defense Authorization Act, transitions the traditional aid relationship into a deeper partnership between the United States and Israel in many aspects of technological research and development and defense production, and would also give Israel unprecedented access to US technology development and data fusion. It allows Israeli manufacturers, this is something I'm really worried about, it allows Israeli manufacturers to operate production facilities in the US with an American partner. This stands in contrast to the standard way America provides military support to nations. Historically, the weapons that the US provides in arms packages are all made in the US by American manufacturers. This provision, Section 224, would change that on behalf of Israel's interests. It's important to understand that. Now, with that in mind, I want to go to the ranking Democrat in the House Armed Services Committee who actually rejected Ro Khanna's amendment, and that's Democrat Adam Smith. Let's go to video C3.
I'm actually very sympathetic with some aspects of the remarks of Mr. Khanna about the frustration we have with Netanyahu's leadership in Israel. We have endless wars now in Gaza, in the West Bank for that matter, in Lebanon. No effort to negotiate, no effort to find partners for peace amongst the Palestinians or the Lebanese, even where there are opportunities to do that. Mr. Netanyahu insisted on this war with Iran that has strengthened Iran and weakened our position. We have 3 existing programs right now where we do military cooperation with Israel to develop technologies. Those programs already exist. This amendment doesn't create a single other program other than those 3. It suggests some other areas where maybe we should look at opportunities. And as the chairman noted, we had somebody now appointed to coordinate those programs. This amendment comes at a very bad time because of everything I just said about Israel, but let's not forget about what the amendment actually does. And the other part of this, and I agree with the chairman, to say that this is us bowing to the bidding of Israel on this is completely inaccurate. The reason we're doing this is because we benefit from that technology development. We develop the weapon systems.
By the way, he goes on to trash basically what we as Americans are capable of developing ourselves on our own soil. I mean, like the weird, like on his knees, like, well, where would we be without Israel? Oh my God, their ability to develop new technologies, we could never compete with that. We need them so badly. I disagree, I totally disagree.
It's not a matter of disagreement, they're lying.
They are lying, exactly.
So, okay, so we're gonna spend $1 to $1.5 trillion. Israel's gonna spend 0. And somehow magically they're gonna develop the technology. No, we're gonna develop the technology.
100%.
They're gonna take it and then say, we are now giving back this technology to you. Are we not generous? And all of their crooked politicians like Adam Smith and almost all the Democrats and the Republicans in this case are gonna go, oh, well, look at this wonderful technology. You know what I'd love to, if there was a real reporter, and there's some drop site guys there, maybe they can catch some of them in the hallways and say, can you tell us which technology Israel gave us? My guess is that most of the technology they got originally from us, and that if they developed anything on top of it, that they sold it back to us as they sell it to any other country. They didn't give us anything. We give. And then liars like Adam Smith, and to be fair to him, almost all of Congress go, oh my God, they're so good with technology. It's just to confuse you. What does that mean, they're so good with technology?
It means nothing.
Show me tangibly, what did they give us? Because we gave them $320 billion. We're about to hand over all of our military spending to them. So you see how these liars try to manipulate you into serving a different country?
Yes.
As I was watching, I watched the whole 20-minute so-called debate. And so Ro Khanna, of course, is the one who introduces it and is awesome. And he's like, wait. It's like, why aren't we representing Americans? Why are we representing a different country? Sarah Jacobs, by the way, Jewish and very proud to be Jewish, talks about it all the time, has family in Israel. And she's like, what are we doing here? You guys are not telling the truth. It does integrate our military, the technology, the infrastructure. So, the reason she was saying that is because Ronnie Jackson, you remember the candy man, the guy who used to dole out all the pills in the Trump first term, he's now a congressman. And he introduced this bill. okay, in the Armed Service Committee. And he's like, well, we're not putting any boots on the ground together. There won't be any ground troops. Israel will not be able to control our ground troops. And she's like, what are you talking about? This isn't about ground troops. This is about integrating our technology.
Yeah.
So she totally busted them on the lies. But even though she's Jewish and proudly so, et cetera, somebody else, and I'm telling you, I couldn't tell if it was a Democrat or Republican because they're all saying the same thing except for Sarah and Roe, right? And he's like, oh, well, if we don't do this, they're gonna kill all the Jews.
Oh my God, I know, I heard that part of the debate.
Come on.
It's just so insane. I mean, it's amazing how much they recycle that same talking point, and they think we can engage in enough emotional manipulation to make everyone heel to our demands. It's crazy. But anyway, I want to just go to one more video because you saw a little bit of what Khanna had to say in his speech before the debate took place. And you're right, Cenk, it was 20 minutes. I mean, it's amazing how quickly they decide the fate of our sovereignty, and just effortlessly, breathlessly, who cares? But anyway, I want you to hear more from his speech because I thought it was pretty powerful. Take a look.
We need to tell Netanyahu that America calls the shots, not the prime minister of any other country. They want less cooperation and blank checks to Israel, not more. Only the United States Congress would dream up at this moment, let's actually do more for Israel, not less. And that's what Section 2024 does. It's a pretty simple thing. Should we do more for Israel than we already do, or should we do less? If you think we should do more for Israel, you should be against my amendment. If you think we should do less for Israel at the time that he's arrogantly telling Donald Trump what to do, then you should be for my amendment. Now, let me just be clear. Mr. Netanyahu actually wrote to a member of Congress to put this Section 224 into the bill.
He sure did, and I showed you the evidence of that. And it's amazing because immediately after he gave that speech, every single member, with the exception of Congresswoman Sarah Jacobs, struck down, voted against Khanna's amendment, thus saying, no, we want Netanyahu to boss our president around. It's amazing.
So look, the Republicans I get because of two things. Literally every one of them has taken money from the Israeli lobby. And Tom Massey just lost, so they got the message, if you oppose Israel, they're gonna spend $16 million against you and eliminate you from Congress. So the Republican Party is now a wholly owned subsidiary of Israel. Now, the Democrats, on the other hand, 80% of their voters are against Israel. Yet, other than Sarah Jacobs and Khanna, every one of them, like dogs, were like, no, we prefer Israel to our voters. Because their voters say to them, no more aid. We don't think it's helping Israel, let alone America, right? And we don't want to enable their worst instincts, and we don't want further integration and further alliance or money being spent on Israel. And they go, shut up. How dare you, you're all anti-Semites. Sarah Jacobs is sitting there going, like, wait, what's going on here, right? No, 80% of your own voters aren't anti-Semites. The brave Jewish American fighters aren't anti-Semites. 63% of Jewish Americans who are opposed to the current Israeli government are not anti-Semites. That is an excuse they use to cover up their bribery and their corruption. These people don't represent America at all. They have been purchased. Yes, the Democrats, along with the Republicans, have been purchased by the Israeli lobby. That is a stone cold fact. #1 donor to this Congress in this cycle. Okay, now, Khanna in a different hearing also today pointed out, you know that 2/3 of our budget is going to the Department of War? And Anna, you're so right, I didn't think about that extra $500 billion, right? It was started at 800 billion and some of Trump's allies were talking about cutting it, as we all remember, right? Then they made it $1 trillion, now they're talking about making it $1.5 trillion because it turns out it's going to Israel, right? So, and he's like, why are we spending 2/3 of the taxpayers' money on war when both Republican voters and Democratic voters say we don't want more war?
And guys, our deficit is out of control. Obviously, as the deficit gets bigger, that contributes significantly to our federal debt, which has already reached $40 trillion. What are we doing? Like, what are we doing? And I just feel like our country is being sold out by the very people who are supposed to represent us.
Absolutely, and last thing is, I didn't want you to miss that trick by Adam Smith, who's a deeply deceptive person. And he's the ranking member, the top Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee. Oh my God, the military contractors, he loves them. So this is all theater, this is all a game. It was the pre-scripted. The Democrats are totally on the side of the defense contractors and Israel. So he said there, now Netanyahu I have problems with, right? But this should not affect our deep relationship with Israel. In other words, the minute Netanyahu loses in a couple of months, Naftali Bennett is just like Netanyahu. He might be even more right-wing than Netanyahu. All of those Democrats and Republicans are gonna go, oh, no problem left with Israel now. Netanyahu left, we're all good. Now back to giving them everything, give them more money and more wars, and they deserve everything in the world. The problem solved, Netanyahu's gone. So that's what those are the talking points they're setting up now. They're actually, if you know politics, they're a little obvious. And that's why I do wonder, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but like, do the reporters in the room that don't work for Drop Site News, the mainstream guys, do they not know any of that? Like there's some chance that they really don't know much about the news.
They probably, I don't know. I don't know what's in their heads, but if I'm speculating, I don't get the sense that a lot of the legacy reporters that are part of these SCIFs or are part of the White House press pool, doesn't seem like they really know the nuances or the historical context that you would need to know in order to suss out the BS.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like they know it at all. Either they're lying to you, which is worse, but I actually think for a lot of the guys on the ground, they were hired to be kind of halfway ignorant and not know politics that much, and not to question. Don't question your editor, don't question the senators and the congressmen. I mean, look.
I mean, that's what the whole thesis, or actually a huge part of the thesis was in manufacturing consent. Pains me to mention Chomsky, but yeah, he was the author, co-author of that book. And the whole idea is, no, you hire people who are predisposed to the kind of propaganda that you want to put out into the world.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I wrote about that in Justice is Coming too. That's the point of chapter 5 about the media. I called it the Matrix. And the guy up top hires the people just like him, and they hire people just like them. So by the time you get to the reporter, they don't know that they were pre-selected to not know anything, and most importantly, not challenge anything.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's why they never challenge these congressmen. Like there was a different scrum. And again, the only person asking aggressive questions was Julian from Drop Site News.
Yeah.
Because the rest of the reporters are like, oh my God, we'll lose access. Who cares? Are you doing news? Are you doing some sort of weird access picnic where you get extra cookies and sandwiches if you kiss the ass of the congressman more?
Right. Is it SCIF or Scrum? They're both bad, okay? Like
Scrum, I think.
But a group of reporters, that's what I meant. Anyway.
Okay, who cares?
Who cares? All right, we gotta take a break. So let's do that. When we come back, we're gonna switch gears. We'll talk a little bit about Sam Altman's attempts to skirt regulation when it comes to artificial intelligence.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
Rich and powerful men abusing, assaulting, and abandoning young women. These rich and powerful men donate to the politicians in Washington, D.C., play golf with the elites in Washington, D.C. They are foreign leaders who we don't want to offend. They interact with our intelligence agencies that we don't want to disobey. There is something rotten in Washington.
And are people still talking about this guy, this creep?
All those congressmen you just saw there are on the record as protecting the child rapists who were clients of Epstein. They have not prosecuted a single person outside of Epstein and Maxwell.
Yep.
Not one.
Is Trump engaging in this cover-up because he's in the Epstein files?
I don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. It's pretty boring stuff.
So as the government keeps telling us, yeah, there's other people. Yeah, they raped those girls. So what? We're gonna cover up for them. But why are you guys so mad?
A nation that chooses impunity for the rich and the powerful at the expense of our children is a nation that has lost its moral purpose. Are you on the side of the people? Are you on the side of America's children? Or are you on the side of the rich and powerful who've had their thumb on the scales and shafted Americans for decades?
The rest of the news media says you should not fight for positive change. If you do, you're not really a reporter or a journalist, because reporters and journalists don't care what happens.
I don't agree. That's not written anywhere, that's not a law. It's just a rule that they invented so that reporters didn't actually challenge the people that are in power. Well, we don't agree with that. We think we should challenge the people in power, that actually makes you a better journalist, not a worse one.
Who do you guys use?
We have AT&T.
And how much do you pay per month?
$345, and that includes a company discount.
How many people?
5 phones.
$70 a line, right? I've started a wireless company called Noble Mobile that is trying to cut everyone's bills in half.
What would like a family of 4 cost?
The average Noble Mobile user is paying $42 a month, but also they're using their smartphone 17% less.
Okay, how's that work out?
We give you $20 back in cash every month based upon how much data you use or don't use. You know when you're doom scrolling or messing around on your phone, you're like, oh wait, I'm actually costing myself money right now. The goal with Noble Mobile is to encourage us to look up at our children's lovely faces, like touch grass, appreciate life. A friend of mine calls these things our rectangles of sadness. So we're trying to change that and improve everyone's relationships with their phones.
It's a very noble cause.
Well, thank you, sir. That's what it is.
Been on YouTube for 20 years.
The original political partner on YouTube, the Young Turks.
The Young Turks.
The Young Turks.
Godfather of independent media.
Favorite news platform by far. Oh, it's not even close.
The Young Turks. It's the largest online news show in the world.
I watched you guys before I had a channel at all.
And I watched Cenk, so Cenk's really the start of it all.
Big shout out to Cenk from Young Turks.
Cenk Uygur, founder of TYT, a man who probably needs no introduction.
Cenk, it's so great to talk to you.
Great to talk to you, David.
Fan, you worked for a long time, man.
Anna Kasparian is one of the most followed and influential progressive women online.
I love Anna.
Your presence has been essential for me to really grow.
Do all of you know the Young Turks? This is why what the Young Turks are doing is so important.
I've watched you for many years. You are insightful. I thank you for that.
I was going to introduce myself, but it sounds like you guys might know it.
I played baseball, but it was sort of slow.
Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani. Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Hank M, thanks for joining. We appreciate it, brother. Anna, what's next? Oh, sorry, we're going to the next video.
OpenAI has been involved in a massive lobbying campaign and also in all of these primaries across the country. AI lobby has been pouring a bunch of money into these elections. Do you think that's ethical, given that those representatives are supposed to be representing the working class constituents in those areas? How do you discuss in good faith with someone like that when they're paying legalized bribes to your colleagues here on Capitol Hill?
Well, that is exactly the point that I'm making.
So that was obviously a drop site news reporter because they asked tough and relevant questions. The AI industry is trying to take over Congress. Their one issue is Bernie Sanders, who's causing them a little bit of trouble. So let's see how they sorted that out, Anna.
Now, to be fair, Sam Altman is worried about 2 separate efforts to regulate AI. Now, increasing members of Congress are starting to be a little bit concerned with how rapidly AI is developing, and they're thinking about maybe some regulation around the edges. And then you have Senator Sanders, who wants something a little more robust. In fact, not only does he want proper regulations for artificial intelligence, he wants to ensure that we, the people who have fueled the actual intelligence that goes into these systems, get something out of the development of artificial intelligence. And he's about to explain in this next clip what his proposal is. Take a look.
In the coming weeks, I will introduce the American AI Sovereign Wealth Fund Act. This legislation would give the public a direct ownership stake in the largest AI companies in America through a one-time 50% tax, not on profits, but on stock. It would do 2 extremely critical things. First, it would give the American people a direct role in determining the future of this technology. No longer would the future of AI be dictated by a handful of big tech oligarchs while the rest of the world sits back and watches them do what they want. Secondly, it would guarantee that the trillions potentially created by AI are used to improve the lives of all of us, not simply to make the richest people on earth even richer.
So that led to Sam Altman feeling a little bit of panic. And so he requested a meeting with Senator Sanders, which took place today. And he also requested meetings with other members of Congress who are thinking about doing a little shao regulation around the edges, right? So those were the meetings that took place today. And I wanna go to D3 next, because here you're gonna hear Senator Sanders explaining how Altman had requested that meeting.
Who set that meeting up?
He did.
And do you think it was because of this?
Who knows? I mean, what we will discuss is the need for a moratorium so that we can have a democratic debate and discussion about the future of AI. We'll talk about that. We will talk about the need for international cooperation so that we do not have a super intelligence, super AI created, which can escape human control.
I'm just wondering what he's going to say when you, I mean, in your video announcing your legislation, you said the time has come to reclaim what has been stolen from us.
Yes.
Since AI is built on the collective knowledge of humanity, the wealth it generates must also benefit humanity, not just Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos.
That's right.
Mark Zuckerberg, Larry Ellison. You didn't name Sam Altman there, but I assume he's in that category.
Put him in, yeah.
I mean, how do you think he views you saying reclaim what was stolen from us?
Well, I don't know how he will respond. That is my view. That is the foundation of AI. Your program is going to be part of AI. This discussion is part of AI.
Now, we don't know the details of what happened in the various meetings that Sam Altman had today. However, I would guess that he's probably reminding members of Congress of the amount of donor money coming from the AI industry, like that pours into the coffers of these lawmakers. I doubt that would be a persuasive argument for Senator Sanders. I also, unfortunately, don't think that his proposal is gonna go anywhere. But I'm curious to hear what you think, Cenk.
Yeah, my guess is that the only person that Sam Altman had a real conversation with is Bernie Sanders.
Agreed.
The rest of them, he comes in, gives a check. They go, yes, sir, absolutely, sir. And he walks out. You don't need a conversation. The check is the conversation. But guys like Bernie don't take corporate PAC money, so then you got to try to convince him. But Anna, you're right. There's just way too many people. So look, the AI guys now are very similar to the Israeli lobby. They spend tons of money in primaries, and they try to eliminate anyone who is not going to give them massive amounts of money and aid and et cetera, and not get in their way at all. And so they've all learned, and they learned it not just from the Israeli lobby, but from Big Pharma and all the others. If anyone is against you, you spend $10 million, but it's okay because that teaches a lesson to the other 535. They vote with you and you get back 10 billion, 10 trillion, et cetera. So Altman's mainly passing out checks there, but he just wants to make sure that Bernie doesn't get any traction with that, is my guess.
And just to be specific, because I do like to provide the receipts, super PACs funded by the cryptocurrency and artificial intelligence industries have amassed more than $321 million in the 2026 cycle. We're talking midterms, and they're shelling out $321 million on the midterm elections. But even that sum of money doesn't really capture how or all the pledged money from the AI industry. So you have something known as the Innovation Council Action. That is a newly formed Republican-focused nonprofit, and it's aligned with the Trump White House's efforts in deregulatory objectives when it comes to AI. And they just pledged to spend $100 million on the midterms.
So I just want to do a little bit of math for you guys real quick. I promise I'll keep it simple. So 321 million, 100 million, these are giant numbers, right? But think about it. So a billion is 1,000 millions, right? These companies are worth trillions. There's trillions on the line, okay? So A trillion is 1,000 billions, which is 1,000 millions.
My eyes are like glazing over.
So
right
do you get that that 400 some odd million that they're spending overall is nothing. It's a rounding error for how much money's on the line. So purchasing Congress in a spectacular fashion is a very logical thing to do from a business perspective. That's why we should end the bribery and get money out of politics. And they talked about that. Drop Site asked Sam Altman about that. And he's like, oh, sure, I would like to do that.
We do have that video. Let's go to D2.
I don't think we've been involved in a massive lobbying campaign. Maybe you know something. I don't. I mean, we've done some for sure, but relative to other companies in our industry, I think we do much, much less.
Hundreds of millions of dollars in elections across the country.
From OpenAI, I don't think we
from the AI lobby.
But I don't think we've done anything near that. I would love to see money out of politics in general. I think that'd be a great thing to happen. I think that it would need to happen fairly to all companies. You can't just say OpenAI's got to follow these rules and Google gets to follow these or whatever. But yeah, I think less money in politics from companies would be good, and these are the people that should, hopefully address that.
It's, hey, let's have a great discussion, but if you end up disagreeing with me, if you go and start really trying to protect the American people, we're going to spend tens of millions of dollars to try to defeat you. And the reason, in my view, that Congress has not stood up for the American people in taking on AI is precisely because of the huge amounts of money. The estimate, again, is at least $300 million in this midterm campaign.
I don't know. Maybe some people do fall for Altman's ridiculous lies, but does anyone really believe that Sam Altman hates money in politics? That he'd like to get all the money out? Please. I mean, then how are you? Look, one of the things that is, I guess, hindering what these Silicon Valley billionaires want to do with AI is the fact that here in America, we do have privacy laws. We do have some laws preventing us from constant surveillance. And that is a hindrance for the development of AI. Because if you're competing with China, well, China doesn't care about those rights. So China is able to develop AI without that hindrance in their minds. I don't care. I don't care. How about instead of constantly having an adversarial relationship with foreign countries, we find a way to be diplomatic? Instead
and cooperative.
And cooperative, exactly. Like, oh my God, we have to give away all of our rights, our quality of life, our privacy in order to compete with China? Why do we have to compete with China on this? Yeah. It's ridiculous.
So I just came up with a really interesting idea in the middle of this segment. I'll get to that in a second. But I want you to notice the trick that he did there. Was it OpenAI that spent the hundreds of millions? No, it was the AI lobby, and we're just a small part of that.
Right.
Literally every AI company says we're just a small part of the AI lobby. They make it seem like someone else, Colonel Sanders, is spending the money. No, you guys collectively are spending that money. And what is it to do? It is obviously to bribe all of our politicians so they work for you and not us. That's not complicated. The only people who missed it are mainstream media reporters. The rest of us are perfectly aware of that. Now, it's a little bit interesting that Anthropic and OpenAI are saying that they should be a little bit more regulated, the industry is, than the rest of the AI companies. So, okay, I'm willing to listen to that and see what the details are. And by the way, that might also be a trick. I'm not saying that it is.
I think it is.
But why would it be a trick to get more regulated? Because they have the money to be able to deal with regulation. But the smaller AI companies might not be able to have enough cash or liquidity to deal with the regulatory issues. That way they kill all the competition underneath them. So you'd have to dive into the details to see which one is true.
I don't trust them at all, come on.
Yeah.
Let me give you a few details on it. This is graphic 2. In a new policy paper, OpenAI calls on the federal government to require mandatory evaluations of advanced AI models for potential risks. That sounds pretty good, right? But places the responsibility for overseeing that process on civilian agencies. Now, if you just take that at face value, that sounds pretty good. Who determines how these civilian agencies are made up? Who's in the civilian agencies? Do you get what I'm saying?
Of course. Well, I mean, look, the congressmen are going to pick the people that their donors told them to pick. Obviously,
that's right.
But to be fair to them, the other companies are saying no regulations.
Yeah, well, that's ridiculous. But unfortunately, under the current terrible system we live under, they're probably going to get their way. But I think the other thing that OpenAI is attempting to do, Sam Altman is attempting to do here, is he doesn't want regulation either, right? So why not engage in this like kabuki theater where you're pretending to endorse regulation that would really be toothless? I think that's what's going on too.
Yeah, and it might just be different strategies. So now, Bernie Sanders is asking for equity here in return. Oh, I love it when good ideas finally take hold.
For real.
So how long have you seen us on this show say, if you're gonna bail out the bankers, take equity. In capitalism, when you put money into something, you take equity. That's how it works, right?
And the Trump administration has done this with a few US-based corporations.
Yeah, and I give Trump credit for that.
Yes, yep.
That's right, and now Bernie's going, oh, maybe, all right, anyways. I'm glad he got to it. I'm super happy he got to it. So way to go, and that's a big number that he's asking for, and I like it, it's a good way to negotiate. Okay, finally, the idea that I came up with in the middle of this. So Sam Altman says, no, I'd love to get money out of politics. Would you? Have you donated to that cause? Because you could give it to Wolfpack or any other wonderful organization that's working on it, fightcorruption.us. So I would believe Sam Altman or anyone else, because they can say, hey, listen, I don't want to be at a competitive disadvantage. As he said, Google's putting in, if I don't put in, maybe I'm at a competitive disadvantage. Okay, so let's say you put in $100 million. If you say, I'm gonna put $100 million into this, but also $100 million into the cause to get money out of politics, then I believe you, okay? Put in the same amount to lobbying as you do to getting money out of politics, and that's a standard that I just created that gets us to believe that maybe you actually do want to get money out of politics. But if you put in $100 million into lobbying and zero into getting money out of politics, then obviously you're enormously full of crap.
Yeah, let's wait and see what happens. All right, we gotta take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about whether or not President Trump has soured on his own vice president when it comes to the front runner for 2028 on the Republican side. We'll be right back.
Damn. All right, so let's go to Super Chat. Deb Long says, to lighten the mood, I highly recommend watching Rubin losing spectacularly on a Jubilee debate. Perfection.
Yes, so good.
We touched on that earlier in the week, but unfortunately we can't show the Jubilee clips, otherwise we'd have had a blast with it, right? But you're right, that is super fun. Rims and Tim says, in my favorite British accent, Cenk, you're a threat to the crown and must be dealt with expeditiously for your truth and hogwash. But in all seriousness, stay safe, brother. Don't let them silence you or Anna. Don't worry, it's very hard to silence us. So if you want, get your Band in the UK t-shirts at shoptyt.com. I appreciate all your support. Let's go to YouTube members. Maddox Mortensen writes in, only 785 signatures so far on the petition to have the decision to have Cenk and Hasan banned from the UK to be reversed. If you want to help out, I'm sure Cenk and Hasan would appreciate your help. Thanks for saying that and for sticking up for us, brother. Look, these petitions are super hard to get a lot of momentum behind because the algorithms don't allow you to promote anything. So it's super frustrating, but thank you for trying to help. tyt.com/UK ban. And if enough people sign that, that might help a little bit around the edges. And we love you for doing that. T Coppish says, yay, Anna, TYT Anna, TYT Salte Anna. So they just love you.
They like me?
Yes, so God bless. Okay, 2Verdi1 says, I thought that they were gonna say we lied in regards to the ceasefire. Redefining ceasefire is pretty crazy. Yeah, well, to be fair, Dick Cheney started it with, it's not torture, it's enhanced negotiations. No Vitriol here said, I wonder sometimes if it's actually more Israelification or if it's all out in the open now and the panic of the donors and the members being bought out is more public.
Do you view Vice President JD Vance as your successor?
No.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. And No Vitriol here had gifted a lot of memberships before, and I was reading his comment during the break. If you want to hear the comments during the break, tyt.com/join. that allows you to get the member stream on tyt.com where we read those comments during the breaks. Anyway, I just wanted to finish up what he's saying. He was saying, like, is this Israelification, or are they just hurrying up because they know they're caught and they're just trying to brazenly pass everything now? And the answer is both.
Yeah, both, especially when it comes to like the new definition for ceasefire, right? Because I mean, when it comes to recent history, the country that agrees to a ceasefire and then continues the bombing is Israel, and now we're doing that. A ceasefire means you stop. You know what I'm saying? But
the word cease means stop.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean moderate, and it doesn't mean sometimes.
Moderate bomb, a light bombing.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean I get to do it, but you don't.
Exactly.
Okay, let's go to the next story.
He's gonna have to learn to navigate that, because he's gonna have to say, yeah, there's some things I do differently, and Trump's not gonna like that. So that's gonna be the joy of being us. We'll be able to talk about it. Not responsible for steering it. We just have to cover it. But yeah, I like JD a lot.
That guy has a chance in hell of getting it.
Why?
Because he's not. I think the opposite. He's not saying anything.
Well, what would you
I don't
expect
think Trump is being
VP
loyal to the American people. I think first and foremost, if you're in any position in the administration, I think you owe it to the people.
To do what, though? What would you expect?
The right thing.
What would you say to JD? Do what?
I would say he needs to speak out against what the is happening in this country and in the world.
Like in front of a microphone?
Yep.
And betray his boss?
Yep.
Damn, that's why we like Sean Ryan. So that was an interesting debate about what JD Vance should do, but apparently that debate is also happening inside the White House. So is Donald Trump gonna back JD Vance? So we'll tell you all about that here, but also look for his insults and his questions about JD Vance, because those are fun. Anna, tell us about it.
It is incredible. And honestly, I'm totally on Sean Ryan's side in that part of the debate, because if JD Vance wants to be thought of as an anti-war, anti-interventionist conservative, a Republican, then he needs to be able to separate himself from Donald Trump's foreign policy, which is gonna be impossible to do unless you start speaking out against that foreign policy and potentially resign, which he would never do. Now, despite claims that JD and Trump get along really, really well, there is some evidence pointing to the contrary. And there was a lengthy New York Times piece about this. It highlighted some of the statements that Trump has been making about JD Vance behind the scenes, in some cases in front of the scenes with JD Vance standing right next to him. And so part of Trump's concern is actually rooted in what might be genuine policy disagreements, although I'm not really buying it. I think JD Vance was a blank slate entering politics. And that blank slate was shaped by his donors, and Peter Thiel was his top donor. And Peter Thiel profits from war, loves war. There's no reason to believe that JD Vance is actually an anti-interventionist. But nonetheless, as the New York Times reports, Trump has repeatedly mentioned the vice president's initial opposition to starting a war with Iran, and has done so in front of Vance. Quote, "I'm more of a peace person than you are, but I had to do it," he has said to him.
Yeah, so that's interesting, because we think that JD Vance is being anti-war is mainly hype, but apparently Trump doesn't like that he even objected through the New York Times leak. You remember?
Yes.
Trying to say like, oh, I wasn't for the war, and Trump's like, what are you trying to claim to be more? Do you think you should get the Nobel Peace Prize instead of me? Brother, you've already invaded like 18 countries. Give it a rest.
Yeah, and by the way, here's one other thing that we have to mention about that statement. I'm more of a peace person than you, but I had to do it. I'm sorry, that does not convey strength. You had to do, you didn't have to go to war with Iran. Why did you have to do it? You're the president of the United States. Anyway, I continue. Additionally, the president has also questioned his decision to send a Vance-led delegation to a negotiation session in Pakistan that failed to end the war. Well, it failed to end the war because JD Vance had absolutely no agency during those negotiations. He had to keep calling Benjamin Netanyahu and ask him, "Daddy, is this okay? Can I do this? Can I offer this proposal?" I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to give an ironic defense of JD Vance on those negotiations in particular. They sent him on a fool's errand. It was an impossible mission because not only did he have to check with Netanyahu, he also had to check with Trump. And Trump and Netanyahu are basically the same person in this regard. And they both gave him maximalist demands. So Iran has the leverage. They go, okay, somehow magically get them to give away their leverage and give us everything we want. That's not a doable task, so they set him up for failure. It's almost like Biden putting Kamala in charge of the border.
That's exactly right. And as the New York Times also points out, he has, because here's the thing with JD Vance, and you never win when you do this with Trump. He is loyal to Trump. Publicly, he is super loyal to Trump. He does Trump's bidding, he defends Trump. He's an attack dog in the mainstream media or legacy media whenever there's an attack against Trump. And the New York Times did highlight that, saying that he, meaning JD Vance, has loyally defended Trump's decision to start the conflict. And he has backed another politically fraught action, the creation of a $1.8 billion fund to compensate victims of what the Trump administration contends is political persecution. By the way, the Trump administration has now dropped that $1.8 billion slush fund that would be funded by American taxpayers because luckily congressional Republicans pushed back against it, and so now it's been dropped. That's good news. But the point is, there might be some examples of JD Vance lightly pushing back against some of this foreign policy behind the scenes. Honestly, I haven't seen much of it. And in fact, there has been reporting indicating that JD Vance said, go in and strike Iran real hard and get out. Okay, if that's your idea of pushing back against Trump's foreign policy, that's not good enough for me, at least. I don't know if it's going to be good enough for the anti-war faction of the Republican electorate, but I'm curious what you think, James.
So on that slush fund, I said that it was one of the most corrupt things I'd ever seen in American history, and so apparently, given Trump's bad polling, it was so corrupt. Even the Republicans were like, "We're making it too obvious," right? But Vance is different because Vance has to please Donald Trump. And that one has nothing to do with Israel, nothing to do with any other lobby. That's all about Trump, right? So now he's like, well, now, my two dads is the name of his show, right? He's like, I got Netanyahu, I got Trump. And they're both impossible and I have to please both of them. So he had to walk the plank for Trump on that one and go, yes, I think obvious corruption to the tune of billions of dollars where we rob the taxpayer to pay ourselves is a good idea. Well, that made him even more unpopular. By the way, he's got two dads now, but Peter Thiel, his original biological father, the one that created him in the Petri dish, is also out there. So eventually his show's name will be Full House.
Now let's get back to the mocking turd, because Donald Trump has been saying some things behind the scenes about JD Vance that I think are fascinating. So his concerns about JD are not purely policy based. So his criticisms apparently range from veiled complaints to outright public embarrassment. He has repeatedly brought up a moment from last spring when Vance fumbled Ohio State's National Football Championship trophy on the White House South Lawn. Trump has said he is happy it wasn't him. And in November, the president wondered aloud why Vance was not more subservient like the officials who work for President Xi Jinping of China. That's hilarious considering the fact that JD Vance, who is a Catholic, literally trashed the Pope on behalf of Donald Trump.
But that is Trump saying for the 100th time, why don't you treat me like a dictator?
I know.
Like you're not supposed to say it out loud. But one more quick
Western
thing.
values, am I right?
Yeah, on that whole Ohio State championship trophy thing, who cares?
I didn't even know it happened.
I didn't know it happened either. I saw he bungled it. So what? How does that relate to policy or what the guy would do in office? So you know what it reminded me of is Moneyball. So in the old days in baseball, instead of looking at the statistics, they'd be like, oh, he's got a hot girlfriend, so that means he's confident. So we should pick him even though he has a lower batting average. What? So the entire baseball infrastructure was based on a bunch of morons who picked on totally arbitrary reasons, and that's old school. And what is Trump? He's about to turn 80. He's old school.
Super old school.
He's like, well, if you have a physical error for once, then you are a bad person or not competent.
You have brought great dishonor.
Yeah, you brought dishonor to our family. What is this? So dumb.
Okay, but to that point, in regard to the fumble, Oh, no, going back to what he said about how JD Vance isn't subservient enough, like the people of China are to Xi Jinping. Here's what he said. I want to read you his quote. "Why don't you behave like that?" Trump asked Vance during a breakfast for Republican senators. "JD doesn't behave like that. JD butts into conversations. I want to have that for at least a couple of days. Okay, JD?" He's so pathetic. Like, it's so pathetic. Come on.
And he's saying it in front of the other senators.
So bad.
Like, he has a need to humiliate people. That is about as bad a trait as you could have in a human being.
Trump has apparently repeatedly also brought up JD's tendency to interrupt those, interrupt mid-conversation with great annoyance. That wasn't the first time he's brought it up. Apparently he's brought it up multiple times. And maybe most importantly, he has told several allies that Vance has never won a tough race without his help. Trump's endorsement got Vance over the finish line in a tight race for an Ohio Senate seat. And I am kind of noticing that Trump seems to favor Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, a little more than JD Vance. He says more complimentary things about Rubio than he does JD Vance. And I don't know if he's kind of...
I have a theory.
Okay, tell me.
Yeah, so one is simple, the other one's a little bit more psychological. The simple thing is Rubio is a paid agent, right? So, and I don't mean just for Israel, although he most certainly is for Israel. And we literally know because of the internal emails of Larry Ellison, where he said, yeah, he will work for Israel and I gave him $5 million and do a super PAC. So Miriam and Mark Levin and all of those have already anointed Marco Rubio, not JD Vance. Although JD Vance is now going and kissing their ass and doing fundraisers and sitting right next to Miriam Adelson and going, oh, I'll serve you as loyally as Marco does. Please, please pick me.
Good boy.
Because this is Hunger Games. They have to suit the large donors to get benefit in the games. So that's one reason why I like Rubio. I think the other reason is because Trump was talked into picking JD Vance as his running mate by his sons. And he doesn't respect his sons. He thinks that they're idiots. So he's always like questioning, should I have picked him? Should I have picked him? The two morons told me to pick him. I'm not sure I should have picked him, right? So whereas the rich donors who picked Rubio, he respects them. Oh, Miriam's good at business. Look at all the casinos she has. I couldn't run a casino. She's running so many. Oh, if she says Rubio, I like Rubio. He's lizard brain.
God. Vance is toast. And look, I actually think that's a good thing because out of all of the potential contenders for the Republican ticket, I mean, there are downsides to everyone who's been talked about. But with JD Vance, I worry about him the most because of his close connection to Peter Thiel and the fact that he has been on the record identifying himself as a post-liberal Republican, meaning he doesn't believe in liberal democracy. Now, I think liberal democracy in the West right now is a myth. I don't think we're actually operating under liberal democracy at all. I think it's all kabuki theater. That doesn't mean I don't like liberal democracy. It means I actually want to live under that system, and I would like to make some significant reforms to our system of government to ensure that we're actually protecting our constitutional rights, our democratic process and our liberal democracy. I don't want to elect people who don't believe in liberal democracy, and that's essentially what JD Vance has said on the record in the past.
Yeah, I'll say one quick thing about that. Look, in terms of who I want to run, Republicans, please run Marco Rubio, please. Oh my God, it'd be a slaughterhouse. I mean, unless we run Buttigieg or something, right?
We will.
But if it's like anyone like Khanna versus Marco Rubio, we might win 40 states. Like
I don't even want to say we because I'm not part of any of that.
No, I'm saying we as in me supporting Khanna or whoever's the populist Democrat, right? If that's the person who emerges from the primary. Don't run Tucker Carlson. Oh yeah, he is bad. He is a very bad guy. Do not run him because he has a very good chance of winning. Marco Rubio has nearly a 0% chance of winning. So, Miriam, we are so worried about Marco. Please run him.
And honestly, based on the polling and the toxicity of the Trump administration at this moment, JD Vance would have a real tough time winning. So the president's overall approval rating has sunk to a second-term low. According to Quinnipiac, Vance is similarly unpopular with 39% of voters approving of the job he is doing. So I think if Vance does run in 2028, he's gonna find himself in a very similar position that Kamala Harris found herself in. Joe Biden was very unpopular. She was his vice president, so she had to find a way to differentiate herself from Biden's presidency, but she was unwilling to do it because she would hurt Biden's feelings. JD Vance is dealing with someone who's even more egotistical than Biden was, Donald Trump. So yeah. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see what's gonna happen.
Yeah, so you're 100% right about that. I don't think he could recover from that albatross around his neck, just like Kamala Harris couldn't get past Biden. And Biden, the egomaniac that he is, demanded complete loyalty. You have to stick with my unpopular positions. What do you think Trump will do? You think Trump will be okay?
Way worse.
Yeah, with JD Vance going, oh no, I didn't agree with Trump on this or that. Then Trump will be like, no way, and then he'll endorse someone else. So he can't get the stench of Donald Trump off of him. It's impossible. So he's screwed either way. But I like giving him a nickname based on what you said. I'll have to think it through. Is it JD Kamala Vance or JD Harris? Because he's basically the Kamala Harris of Donald Trump.
Vancela?
Vancela. I kind of like it. I think we can make some memes out of that one. Okay, although the Kamala Harris people won't like it either.
No, they hate it. They hate it. But I mean, he's going to be in a very similar predicament that's only exacerbated by the fact that the president of the United States is Donald Trump.
No, Princess Vancela with the eyeliner on his, it's going to be amazing. Yeah, that could work.
It is going to be pretty amazing.
Okay, well, internet. Go. Give us memes.
All right, for now, let's take our final break. And when we come back, I can't believe this is happening, but the MAGA defectors are really feeling Hunter Biden. And just now, President Trump said that if Hunter Biden runs for president in 2028, he could have a good shot. I'm gonna explain when we come back, don't miss it.
Do you view Vice President JD Vance as your successor?
No.
All right, so guys, don't forget shoptyt.com for Banned in the UK shirts or anything else you'd want to buy there. A lot of great stuff. Operation Hope, Team Joy. I love my team. My mom instantly was like, "Get me a Team Joy T-shirt," and so I got her and my dad one. All right, TYT for me says you got to give it to Roe. He's the only one fighting in any kind of Bernie way to actually help the people of the USA. Hey, it's proofs in the pudding. Proofs in the pudding.
I agree.
Today, AOC was asked, what do you think of the main situation with Graham Plattner? She said, oh, I haven't waded into the primary yet. Are you gonna vote for Janet Mills? You know, she left the race, there is no primary. What are you talking about? You're equivocating on Graham Plattner? Okay, so we've got no fight from almost anyone else. It's like Roe versus the world.
Yeah.
And then it's gonna be so, the mainstream media right now thinks like, oh, Roe has no chance, outsider. Oh, let's look at all these Democrats that have done absolutely nothing and try to elevate them.
Let me just address the fact that Ro Khanna just saw what happened to his Republican colleague, Thomas Massie, with the Israel lobby targeting him and ensuring that he got voted out of Congress. But Ro Khanna continues to fight against the Israel lobby. And that is honorable. That's what a leader does. And I give him a lot of credit for that.
By the way, since he was in favor of a billionaire tax in California, all the tech billionaires turned on him and they ran this Ethan guy and gave him millions of dollars. He came in fourth.
Nice.
Okay, they're like, so that trying to defeat Roe in an honest battle is not easy.
Yeah, he'll row your boat.
Oh, okay, we'll be right back. We'll row your boat. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. We were during the break, we were kidding around about the T-shirt banned in the UK, shoptyt.com, and then Black Mamba wrote in, can we get a shirt where Cenk is on a horse or a tuk-tuk like a Turkish Paul Revere saying, the Zionists are coming, the Zionists are coming.
I love the idea of you on a tuk-tuk. Like, that's hilarious.
Okay, we'll put some thought, the thugs at shoptyt.com, we'll put some thoughts behind it. And lastly, I just because it's fun, Theater Goddess said, considering the number of assault allegations against him, is anyone surprised that Trump doesn't understand the word cease? That's a good point. Good point, Theater Goddess. All right, Anna, what's next?
All right, well, let's have some fun.
Hunter Biden. Welcome to the Candace Owens show.
It's wonderful to be
People
here.
are just going to be like, how on earth did this happen?
I know.
I did partake in just the inhumanity of just look at this guy at the worst moment of his life, like with prostitutes. He's on crack, he's on drugs, and we should make fun of him because it makes us feel good. Or it makes us feel like we're somehow beating the machine. And that it was, I think, a really warped viewpoint. And hearing you speak about it today, I'm just like, wow, it is so gross that I partook.
For you to say that to me, I truly mean it. But just from a purely selfish point of view, it means the world.
Is Hunter Biden cool? Okay, so something crazy is happening. Now MAGA is starting to like Hunter Biden. What in the world is going on? But I'm gonna tell you after Anna tells you all the details of the story, the person who was on to Hunter Biden being king before anyone else was.
What? Okay, so let's be very clear about something. The people who seem to be warming up to Hunter Biden are MAGA defectors. These are people who were hardcore supporters of Donald Trump. In most cases, they voted for Trump 3 times, but genuinely did believe that Trump was going to release the Epstein files, prevent us getting involved in foreign wars. And then Trump reneged on those promises, which led to a faction of the MAGA crowd defecting. And so obviously Candace Owens is representative of that. And so she had this really lengthy interview with Hunter Biden that I appreciated. They talked about his struggles with addiction. And I think those conversations are actually really important because a lot of Americans are struggling with addiction right now. And I thought it was enlightening and informative and all of that. However, I'm also noticing that he is back on X. He took a hiatus, but he's back.
And we don't mean the drug X, we mean the platform X.
Correct.
You gotta clarify with Hunter.
And apparently he's putting out bangers, as the kids like to say.
Okay.
But before we get to those bangers, something shocking also happened today where President Donald Trump seemed to say something positive about Hunter Biden and his potential political future. Hunter Biden could possibly mount a successful White House bid despite his shaky past, given some of the congressional candidates recently backed by Democrats, President Donald Trump said Thursday. Speaking to reporters, and this is Fox News that I'm reading from, speaking to reporters in the Oval Office, Trump was asked by Fox News White House correspondent Peter Doocy about Biden or Hunter Biden. And apparently Trump said, you would think that the past has something to do with winning an election. And I would say his past is not the greatest. But then he goes on to say, hey, if the guy from Maine can do well, I guess Hunter could do well. What about you, homeboy? What about your past? What about your checkered past? What about the fact that before he got elected in 2016, we had the Access Hollywood tapes where he's talking about grabbing women in their private parts without asking.
Of course. Look, I'm starting to like Hunter for the reasons we're about to explain. But why are we talking about Hunter running for office?
I don't know.
This country
is a mess.
Is a mess because we think in terms of royalty. I remember after the Clintons, there was discussion that Chelsea Clinton would run for office. No, your kids don't have to run for office. Hunter Biden has no business in politics. He could do commentary, that's super interesting.
Paint, he loves painting.
That's true. You need a gas expert? He's your man?
No.
Okay, but seriously, guys, seriously, look, him doing this commentary is kind of fun. And you want to talk about politics, great. He doesn't have to run for office just because his last name is Biden.
I think he should just be, an S poster. You know what S stands for? I can't curse on the show.
Yeah, crap poster, right?
Yeah.
And Trump is so obvious. He's like, you should run Hunter Biden because he wants, he thinks we're dumb enough to run Hunter Biden and lose.
Okay, there is no we. We don't control who runs, and we're not. I mean, I'm not part of any establishment, right? Neither is Cenk. But can we just please have people who are qualified for the job, know what they're doing, and want to make the country better? But anyway, let me talk about the banger posts on X. Here's an example. In this one, he wrote, WTF timeline are we on? Someone called me the MAGA whisperer, and I'll gladly take the title. Left, right, D or R, Democrat or Republican, we all want the same things. We're being divided on purpose by the Epstein elite oligarch class, because as long as we're at each other's throats, they get fat and rich off of our misery. The second we figure out we agree on more than we disagree, they're done. Love your neighbor, be yourself, radical honesty, no F's given, no F's taken. Everything else is just noise, but still F Jake Brick Tamland Tapper on any timeline.
Yummy for my tummy.
Okay, look, I agree with everything written there, actually. But my mind wanders back to the last presidential race where behind the scenes you had Jill and Hunter Biden encouraging Joe Biden and his addled brain to remain in the race. And that was an issue that I don't think I'll ever forgive them for.
Yeah, that's a great point. But look, the reason why people like him now is, or beginning to, is because he sounds like a real person. And like you could tell from all of his past, not a corporate robot. And that's the same reason why people like Graham Plattner. Originally, people liked Donald Trump because they thought he wasn't part of the elites. He is. He was just too dumb to be able to effectively act, and it wound up being an ironic advantage for him. But Hunter, I believe him when he says no F's given. Believe me, given his life, I believe it.
And people have been loving his posts, so I'll give you a few examples. One person writes, in recent memory, I don't think anybody has had a more successful debut on X than Hunter Biden. Dude announced his arrival, clapped back like a pro, and he's already got the whole timeline obsessed. This isn't a comeback, it's a victory lap. Welcome to the party, Hunter Biden. You're here to stay.
Yeah, people are saying he's response king.
He is response king because he's responding in a self-deprecating way, and he has a sense of humor, which I think people love. Okay, so I'll give you an example. So one person writes to him, your paintings, who gives an F? I want to know how much coke you snorted before posting this tweet. And he wrote, man, if you're gonna be mean, at least get it right. I smoked crack. I would never have wasted coke on snorting it. I didn't even know you could smoke cocaine, but apparently you can.
Well, that's crack.
Oh yeah, that's
Coke
right.
turns into crack.
Yeah. Anyway.
We're such nerds.
I mean, look, no, I'm not a nerd. I've experimented, just not with Coke because it's such a waste. Like, oh, I'm gonna like damage my body for 15 minutes. No, if I'm gonna damage my body, it's gotta last a few hours. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
But I'm not
Keeping
experimenting.
it real.
I'm like older now. I'm not experimenting with anything. I'm fine. But let's go to some more posts because this one I really, really loved. Okay, no, I gotta give you one more. So one person says, excuse me, but aren't you decidedly part of the elite oligarch class? You're the son of a career senator, former VP, and president who received the most legally overboard pardon, which may not even be constitutional in the history of the United States. Sounds pretty effing elite to me. And he responds with that photo of himself, which came out of the Hunter Biden laptop story. Do I look like I'm part of the elite oligarch class? This was taken at a Super 8 motel off 195, by the way. It's pretty good.
Crack's a hell of a drug.
Okay. So here's the one that caught my attention, okay? This was something that finally called out the double standard when it comes to the corruption carried out by the Bidens versus the Trump family. He says, so let me get this straight. Jake Tapper is focused on attacking my mom. Jared and Ivanka are building a private island paradise on Albanian protected land. Don Jr. married the daughter of Epstein's banker, and a startup his fund backs just got a record $620 million Pentagon loan.
That's true.
Eric is taking an Israeli drone company public for $1.5 billion in the middle of a war that with Iran that nobody wanted. And I know, quote, but what about your paintings, Hunter, please?
No, so I agree with Jake Tapper on attacking his mom. So it's the only time I agree with Jake Tapper. But the rest of it, he's totally right. And we've talked about it on the show. Look, we've called out Hunter Biden 100 times. We did it when Biden was in office because we're honest and we're principled. And but he's an amateur compared to the Trumps, right? Like the $1.5 billion Israeli company that Eric's involved in, $620 million is now a huge controversy. Don Jr. invested into that company just 3 months before they got that enormous loan. Where's my loan from the US government?
What about all of the crypto schemes that the Trump family is getting rich off of as well?
Let alone the worst of the worst, Jared Kushner, $2 billion from the Saudis after some believe he gave top intelligence illegally, our intelligence to the Saudis, which might have even cost some people's lives. And then he gets $2 billion doing, he never did private equity before. He had no experience in that. It's just like Hunter being a Ukrainian gas expert. Kushner was not a financial expert at all. In fact, the only thing he ever did was real estate, and he had literally the worst investment in Manhattan history. He's the worst real estate developer and zero experience in finance. So, like, as we told you, they were like, "Oh, Hunter, you think you could do corruption? Hold my beer." Okay.
Yep, totally. And look, that's not to exonerate Hunter Biden or the Biden corruption as it pertains to serving on the board of Burisma. That was a problem, and we did call it out. We've never defended it. But I do think that it's wrong to operate under this weird double standard where the Trump family gets away with robbery. And this one thing involving Hunter Biden is what everyone focuses on endlessly. And by the way, there is a great reporting in ProPublica about that Don Jr. Story that he had alluded to in that post. It's titled "The White House intervened to get a $620 million deal for a company tied to Donald Trump Jr. About 3 months before the Pentagon announced plans to lend money to Vulcan Elements, Trump Jr.'s venture capital firm took an undisclosed stake in the company. And then they go into the details about that.
So who knew ahead of time that Hunter Biden was secretly cool?
Who?
Hassan Piker. So we were at a Thanksgiving now over a decade ago, and he would not stop. It was actually one of the funniest Thanksgivings we've ever had. This was back in New Jersey, back in the day before Thanksgiving. And he wouldn't stop about, no, bro, that guy's real, man. Okay, and he was kidding, but only kind of. And so, but in all seriousness, what he was noticing is the same thing we were just talking about. Graham Plattner, Hunter Biden, where they're real human beings with a billion flaws, and that's much better than a corporate robot.
Yeah, because when people see those flaws, they think about themselves. Everyone has flaws, and so you want real people representing you. Yep. I get that.
Next is Adam Hamawi. He just won a huge election in New Jersey against AIPAC. So stay right here, we're gonna talk to him next. All right, welcome to the revolution. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and we have a hell of an interview for you guys today. Joining me now is Dr. Adam Hamawi. He is running for Congress. He just won a contested primary in New Jersey. He does not take Israeli lobby money, and hence he has been targeted. We're going to show you how he's been targeted by both politicians and the media. First, welcome, Dr. Hamawi.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, there's so much to talk about here. First of all, it's Jersey. I grew up in Jersey. You live in South Brunswick. I grew up in East Brunswick. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I used to live in East Brunswick too for a while. So.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. All right. We'll have to do a nostalgia tour one day. Okay. So a lot to talk about here because your background is really interesting. The primary race was really interesting, and now the attacks against you, which are over the top, are interesting. So one at a time. We'll get to the attacks. But you were a U.S. Army combat veteran, a 9/11 responder, and you volunteered at Gaza hospitals. Tell me about that last part there. So you're a doctor that's obviously in Jersey, and so what did it mean to volunteer in Gaza?
So I've been volunteering in war and disaster areas for the last 30 years. So I've been all over the world. I've been in Central America, all over the Middle East, and most recently in Gaza because of what's happening there. Usually if something is happening, I try to volunteer my time because of my experience in the Army as a combat trauma surgeon. And after October 7th in 2023, I started reaching out to different organizations to see who needs a plastic surgeon and who I could go with, and was able to get in May of 2024 for the first time. And since then, I've been back another time last year in 2025.
Yeah, look, I gave a speech the other day at a Muslim event, and I said, I'm not a very religious guy to say the least, but if there is a heaven, it's going to be filled with doctors who went to Gaza. Taking that personal risk with your life is amazing. So before we get to all the drama of current day politics, tell us a little bit about how it was in Gaza.
It's still very hard to describe. I've been to war. I've seen how horrible it is, and there's always a complete there's a waste of life. There is civilians that are always caught in the crossfire and that are killed. But what I saw in Gaza was not war. It was a level of killing and destruction at a scale I had never seen before. It was daily. It was deliberate targeting of not groups of fighters or any kind of military units. It was deliberate targeting of civilians every single day. And what I saw is mostly children come in because that's what Gaza's population is like. And it was relentless, and it's really what prompted me to do what I'm doing. I came back, and I couldn't go back to my practice like I usually do, having felt like I've given back, because while I was there and the hospital was shaking, and the broken bodies of people and children who've lost limbs were coming in, it was because of the bombs that I was paying for with my tax dollars. And I felt that I had to be a witness on what's happening. So few people are able to get into Gaza. It was just humanitarian workers, doctors and nurses who were providing care. Obviously, journalists aren't allowed to go in. Most Israelis are not allowed to go in. So we are the very few eyewitnesses that could come and tell the story of what's really happening on the ground. So I started going to Congress.
So that's haunting, but you said deliberate targeting. Tell me more about that. Why did you think that it was deliberate?
Well, accidents happen all the time. But when you have the same, quote, accident happening every single day, that's not an accident anymore. And this was happening every single day before I got there, during my time, and it's still happening today. There is still, despite a ceasefire, the deliberate targeting of civilians every single day. And so the genocide continues despite whatever is being said in the media.
Okay, so then you start running for Congress, and I'm so glad you did, because yeah, you've got to be the change that you're looking for in the world, to borrow a line from Gandhi, right? Because there is no cavalry, they're not coming, we are the cavalry. And so I love that you did that. So of course, now you're gonna run and you're gonna get into the mess of politics. So you don't take any Israeli lobby money. So tell me about what happened in the primary and how that went.
So, I mean, this wasn't the only reason I'm running. I mean, I'm running because it contrasted what I'm seeing over there with what I see every day as a doctor here in New Jersey. And for years, I've been practicing, and every year it gets more difficult because I'm fighting insurance companies. Patients can't pay their medical bills, they're going into debt. And we have a failing healthcare system, as well as, failing infrastructure, education. I mean, we see what's happening in America. And so I ran because I said we should be spending here in healthcare rather than the bombs overseas and the endless wars. And running on that, I immediately got attacked and was called, an extremist because I didn't want to send bombs overseas, specifically that I was critical of Israel. And you could be critical about anything in the world. I could say anything I want about Trump. I could say anything I want about the US government, and criticize what's happening here. But God forbid you say anything against Israel, then all of a sudden I'm an extremist.
Yeah, and so I don't know if you know how much money was spent against you so far, just in the primary. The bigger money will be in the general election.
So that's the unusual thing here, is that I was criticized from day one as being the anti-Israel, the anti-AIPAC candidate. Had articles written against me, criticizing me. Again, like if it wasn't a daily basis, but I had a lot of articles and expected AIPAC to jump in, but they never did. And the attacks were really just on the media, right-wing, extremist stuff, as well as, the Jewish Insider, which I seem to be their favorite subject for the last 6 months.
Yeah, so we're gonna get to the media reaction since you won the primary in a second, but tell me more about that, because they say you're the anti-AIPAC candidate and they write that in a negative way. Why would that be a negative? 80% of Democratic voters are against Israel. So what was their basis for saying that that's a negative thing?
Their basis, they were saying that because I was critical of Israel, and again, they're trying to reach their right-wing base. They're trying to reach their the pro-Israel, really the candidates that were pro-Israel. They were trying to get support for them, and what we found is that exactly what you're saying is that most of the people here in New Jersey are against that, and that AIPAC is seen in a negative light, especially as more and more people find out exactly what it's doing to American politics as they continue to support a genocide. And so I think, and what we're realizing now is that they looked at this race, they looked at me and my opponents and saw that no matter how much they spent, that they weren't going to be able to succeed with the changing, with the way the changing landscape and how Israel and AIPAC is viewed. So they stayed out of the race and just went the media smearing route.
Yeah, that makes sense. And of course, the idea that the media would be fair or objective is a joke. That's impossible. And so if you're a real person trying to represent American voters, you have to bake into the equation that the media will be nearly 100% against you, which now brings—
Not just that, not just that, and Muslim too. I mean, some of the attacks that they use, because you're a Muslim, they can't use it against everyone else. And so when all else fails, you fall back on the same tropes that have been used for decades now.
Yeah, and so like when you say anything against Israel, they say, oh my God, anti-Semite, but we didn't say anything anti-Semitic, and 63% of Jewish Americans are on our side. They're against the current government of Israel, right? So, okay, so you're weaponizing the charge of anti-Semitism. But when it comes to anti-Semitism against Muslims, because Muslims are also, if they're Arabs, are Semites, they go, oh, we love the anti-Semitism against Muslims. In fact, the media is the #1 culprit of that anti-Semitism. So they go, oh, if you're a Muslim, we're gonna call you a terrorist. Now, their excuse in this case is, and now that you've made it past the primary, I've seen it all over media, right? And Mike Lawler recently attacked you this way, Mark Levin did, all of Israel first, right? And they say, well, you were a witness in the blind shake trial in 1993. That was the original bombing of the World Trade Center. Obviously less impact, but terrible. And they say, so hence you must be a terrorist. So address that for our audience.
I mean, it's fairly ridiculous because, I was in the military before this, during this, and after. My patriotism and my record of taking care of patients, serving this country in and out of uniform over decades now is clear. I was a responder in 9/11. I was, a combat trauma surgeon in a war zone and saved the life of a living senator. But of course, that didn't matter. And during that time, I was a witness because, the sheikh was someone who was one of the few religious figures in New Jersey at that time. If you remember the 1990s, there wasn't like really many here. And I was a good witness because I had nothing to do. I was never accused about having and being involved at all. I mean, I was a witness to events, and I went and spent 20 minutes in court because I believe in our system of justice and laws, having given an oath to protect and defend it as an officer of the United States Army. It was never a big deal at the time. I walked into court, walked out, went right back to medical school. Everyone knew I did it, and it was never an issue at that point. But of course, now because I am running, for a seat in Congress, and because they see that the last person they want in Congress is someone who's going to be critical of Israel and critical about how we are, spending our resources, overseas for endless wars and bombs rather than for our communities here, that all of a sudden, because I am Muslim and happen to be a witness in that trial, that now I'm associated and, quote, a terrorist.
So why did they have you testify? What was it about?
So it was a last minute carpool. I was in a car with some community leaders and some folks from the community, and the sheikh was there, and they wanted to know what happened. And so I testified truthfully under oath about what happened. And I think, based on the testimony, everyone, I clarified events. It was probably as much helpful and hurtful to both prosecution as well as the defense, because I just said events as they happened. I had nothing to do with anything, and that's what made me a credible witness.
Okay, so of course in the press they painted it like you were his best friend and you were vouching for him, and he's so shocking that isn't true. That's so weird because our media is so objective. Okay, so
well, looking at the articles, it's kind of evolving. You see the original article kind of states a little bit, and then each one gets worse and worse until they're painting it as again, it's just they're creating their own story.
Yeah. So the senator you say was Tammy Duckworth, right?
Correct.
So tell me about that, because that's so random. How did you wind up saving her life?
So I was the surgeon, the US Army surgeon in Baghdad when her Black Hawk was shot down by an RPG. And she was brought to the hospital along with her whole crew. And I was the surgeon taking care of her. So she came in, she was awake. She was probably the most seriously injured of all her crew. She was asking how they were, not asking about herself, again, showing what kind of leadership we need in this country rather than what we currently have. And I spent several hours operating, stabilizing her. It wasn't just her legs, her arms was also injured. And after she was stable, she was evacuated shortly after that out of Baghdad to Germany. And we lost contact for a while. And then one day I saw her on the news that she was running for Congress in Illinois. And I was able to follow her as, she ran and eventually made it to Congress as in the House of Representatives and eventually a senator. And for me, she symbolized all the people I took care of, the hundreds of soldiers, men and women, while I was there, that I never was able to track and see what happened to them. And many years later, she was able to return the favor when I was trapped in Gaza in 2024. She was critical in being able to put pressure to allow my team to exit safely.
It's actually a beautiful story. So Alan Dershowitz says that he defended Epstein and that he would defend the Epstein clients. because hey, the legal system's so important. So you're not allowed to criticize him for that. Otherwise, you're attacking the entire legal system. Wasn't a court-appointed lawyer. He decided to do that. Okay, but when you are a normal part of the court system, they go, oh no, that's unacceptable because you're Muslim, and so now that brings us to Mike Lawler. So Representative Lawler is a Republican and very much Israel first. And he's saying that you should be basically disqualified for being part of that legal process. So how do you respond to Representative Lawler?
Based on what? Based on your imagination more than anything else. I have a history of fighting for this country. I have a history of saving lives. My stances are that we should be using our resources as a country to help our communities, to help our healthcare system, our education, our infrastructure. And what he wants to use our resources for is to fund a genocide. So this is the contrast. And so when you lay it out that way, they have really no legs to stand on. They are exactly what you said. They are Israel first before America first. This is what we need to be able to stand up. And that's why we need to get all this, this AIPAC money out of the system, is because it is not for America. It is not for our communities. It is for spending, on an illegal and immoral war overseas. It's for funding genocide, and it's taking away and stealing from the people here, the working people, every day. And the only ones benefiting from this are the defense contractors and all the corporations that benefit from war. And this is why we need to get this money out of politics.
Oh, you got that right, brother. And that's part of why both Bernie Sanders and Ro Khanna have endorsed Dr. Hamawi. So, yeah, so I'll go further than you. I'm not even asking you about this. I just got to say it to the audience. So Lawler is trying to connect Dr. Hamawi to terrorism. And Max Miller said that Rashida Tlaib was supporting terrorists yesterday in Congress. Israel has killed 70 to 100 times the number of civilians that Hamas has. They have a worse civilian kill ratio than Hamas has. IDF kills 83% of the people they kill are civilians. As Dr. Hamawi discussed earlier, it's deliberate targeting. There's no question. They bomb hospitals, they bomb schools, they do double taps to kill medical workers. They definitely intend to murder civilians and murder them at a greater rate than any terrorist organization in the world. So in reality, Representative Lawler and Representative Miller are terrorist sympathizers, but that's my opinion. Okay, I had to get that out. All right, Dr. Hamawi, let's talk about the general election. So which Republican are you up against? Tell us about New Jersey 12. Is it red, blue, purple?
So it is a blue district. It's plus 13. It's the seat that Rep. Bonnie Watson Coleman has held for the last 12 years. It's very progressive. I'm running against Greg Mealy, who was the only nominee for the Republicans. And I'm not taking anything for granted, but we expect that we should be victorious in November.
So even though it's a plus 13, they just can't stand it. And the minute you won the primary, they're like, I don't know, we have to defeat him somehow. So the smears, and I'm gonna go back to media here because I can't help myself. Like, I'm curious, like I know it because I've been covering this stuff for 25, 30 years. And I tell every progressive populist candidate that runs, your number one enemy is going to be the media. They are not objective. Do not make the mistake of trusting them. Start planning for their attacks, because if you don't have a good chance of winning, then they'll leave you alone and they'll never talk about you because they'll take the oxygen out of the room that way, right? If you're not close. But the minute you get close, they're gonna be vicious. So did you know that going in, and especially after you won the primary, and all of these different large media organizations are targeting you and all doing the same smears? Were you surprised at the severity of it?
I was not surprised. It's different experiencing it than expecting it, but I did grow up as Muslim in America and have experienced hate, questioning my patriotism, smears, and discrimination all my life. The fact that it is getting more and more absurd is actually, more amusing. It used to be a little bit more subtle, but I think they are getting desperate, and that's what I'm seeing is that they're like, most of what's happening is that they're just like creating their own stories, and you could see it as evolving as they get more and more desperate. And unfortunately, it's not just the media. It is the politicians as well, because as you said, we have members of Congress that have stepped in. It isn't just Republicans, it's Democrats as well. I mean, we have Democrats that are playing in and taking in right-wing media points and spewing the garbage out. And, again, some of this started from my opponents. And so, until we start cleaning ourselves up, the media is just going to take these stories and run with it because they see that we are encouraging it.
So I don't know this, I should have looked it up, but is it Gottheimer?
How did you guess?
Yeah, there you go. Okay, yeah. So Josh Gottheimer is a pretend Democrat, also from New Jersey. Outside of Israel, which he absolutely loves, adores, and like almost 1 billion times more than America, and his actions show that. He also loves corporations and corporate PAC money, and he's one of the most disgustingly corrupt members of Congress and of the Democratic Party. So if anybody was going to do an unfair attack, it'd be Josh Gottheimer. And not just because you're Muslim, but because you're also a progressive, and he despises his own voters, he despises progressives. He's one of the worst Democrats in the country. Okay, but as I see the attacks against you, I see a similarity between you and Graham Plattner. So, and it's kind of an interesting thing, right? So the similarities are you're both outsiders, you both are against funding Israel. That right there, boom, that's gonna get you all the attacks, right? You're both against corporate PACs, you're both progressives, you were both in the military. Now the divergence is Graham's led an interesting life, right? And there's some stuff to criticize. You've led like a Boy Scout life, like this exemplary, like in the army, saving people's lives, et cetera. But as you see the media attack him in the same exact unfair ways that they're attacking you, you feel some sort of bond there?
Absolutely, and I was a Boy Scout, by the way. But
there you go. Of course you were.
It's their playbook. If you stand up, if you're progressive, if you stand up and speak out against Israel, they're going to attack you, and they're going to find whatever they can. So, and they're going to blow it out of proportion, and they're going to take it out of context, and then they're going to make things up just to elaborate, because that's what happens. This is what they've been doing for decades, not just against opponents, but again, the whole story about Israel being the only democracy in the Middle East, which we know is false. This is how they've been able to survive, and that that story is crumbling. That whole vision about that scenario, people are waking up to what's really happening, and so that's why we see this getting a little bit more absurd as they're frantically trying to save that image that is not going to be there for much longer.
All right, so now then let's have a little bit of fun. Okay, so I often ask these type of questions just to get to know you better. So I had an incredibly similar experience as you. I was 8 years old when I came over from Turkey. I also was a Cub Scout. I didn't make it to Boy Scout, I didn't make it. Which actually is a little bit telling for in my part, like not good enough to be a Boy Scout. Anyways, so you were born in Egypt, right? And I could tell that you came over before you were 13. So when did you come over?
7 months old. I was a little baby, 7 months old.
Okay, 7 months old. So basically you're in effect born here, right? Because you grew up your entire life here. So did you do extracurricular activities, sports or band or anything like that in high school?
I ran track in high school, was a Boy Scout, and went to Rutgers for undergrad, so right down the road, and joined the National Guard when I was, my freshman year in college to help pay for it. Eventually got out of the National Guard because I got an ROTC scholarship, which put me the rest of the way through college. And then after finishing my medical education, because an immigrant, you got to be a doctor, I was in the regular army on active duty for 8 years as a trauma surgeon. Well, half the time as a trauma surgeon, but then they sent me to get trained as a plastic and reconstructive surgeon because of all the wars that were going on, and they were short and they needed someone to start putting people together.
Yeah, so Rutgers makes sense. You've got some interesting Rutgers connections there. Hassan Piker has also endorsed you. He also went to Rutgers. So a couple of famous Rutgers alumni there, Elizabeth Warren. And then Rami El-Gandor was gonna give a speech at Rutgers for graduation and got banned because he's pro-Palestinian. So
puts out a bunch of radicals, doesn't it?
Yeah, all of a sudden Rutgers kind of like a progressive hotbed. Except of course the administration, which is to be expected. But so you live in South Brunswick now? Did you grow up in South Brunswick?
I grew up in Old Bridge, so I went to elementary
school. That's even closer to East Brunswick. Oh, come on, we probably ran across each other. How old are you?
I'm 56.
Oh my God, I'm 56.
Oh. Okay, so were you on a track team? We might have ran against each other or something.
That's amazing. Yes, I was in 9th grade. Were you on the track team?
Yes. I was, so we were probably on the track together. So at some point, you probably beat us in something.
So look, East Brunswick was a bit of a juggernaut. So if you played against us in football, then we crushed you. But I was the worst person to have ever run track. I literally came in last in every single race. So if we ever raced, you definitely beat me because I never came in anything but last. So I ran the 400, which apparently I shouldn't have. Did you run the 400?
I ran the 1600, so a little bit longer distance.
Okay. This close.
Well, I probably watched you lose, so that's okay.
There you go. And hopefully I'll watch you win. So again, so all right, that's amazing. That's a fun story. So all right, just one more thing, just again for fun. So these days, what do you do in your off time when you're not saving children and senators?
Well, I love to spend time with my family. I'm married. I got 4 children, and I like to draw and paint. And I still practice medicine, so I still do that. So I have a pretty busy life and try to. I'm juggling one thing or the other, but it's fun. I mean, I like to keep myself busy.
So look, I know you don't have much time, but especially on the campaign trail and being a surgeon at the same time. But any TV shows you watch with the family these days?
I'm watching One Piece now. My daughter's got me on this after. After starting the campaign, I've been traveling all over the world and seeing One Piece drawn on the wall in the West Bank. Every protest I go, there's a flag there. And then my daughters are saying, this is the thing. So I've been watching it as I work out like every other day.
Okay, so I don't know, but I'm gonna have to check it out because not just because of you, but our producer Alyssa in the back is going whoop whoop on One Piece. So we hope you survive this election in one piece because all of Israel First is coming for you. So great to have you on the show. Appreciate it. Here, I'll offer you a Rebellion PAC endorsement on the spot. So I don't know if Graham Plattner's in it, Khanna's in it, Richard Ojeda, etc. So if you'd like it, we'd love to have you as part of the rebellion.
I am honored. I would love to be.
Yeah, that's awesome. Look at that, growing the rebellion every day. All right, Dr. Hamawi in New Jersey 12. Don't take anything for granted. Everybody go out and vote. It would be amazing to have real fighters, people with compassion in Congress representing actual Americans and not corporations and not foreign governments. And you know you can trust Dr. Hamawi on not representing foreign governments. So thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yep. All right, guys, we're out of time for today. Much love. I'll see you tomorrow.